subcommittee hearing today. Can I just start off with a few protocols? I've already sent the protocols, so if we can just briefly go through the protocols for remote hearings. Only speak when invited by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. Will everybody ensure that their mics are muted when they are not speaking? If you're having any technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Applicants and all other parties will be asked to leave the proceedings after the item has concluded. Once all applications have been considered, can you please log out of the hearing, and each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. So if I can start off with the first item on the agenda, can we elect a chair, please?
Councillor Smith.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. Licensing Subcommittee A, Tuesday the 10th of November, 2020 at 7 o'clock. I just want to draw your attention to the agenda. I don't know if everyone can see an agenda at all. If you can't, raise your hand, let us know. Everybody see an agenda okay? Yep. Apologies for absence.
We haven't received any apologies for absence, Chair.
Yeah, Amanda, you wanted to say something?
Chair, I think Mr. Hopkins was saying he was raising his hand just now. So I don't know if
I must explain to everyone that I can't see everyone on my screen, so I'm using an iPad. So any assistance is very welcome.
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Hopkins, have you got your agenda? Are you okay?
Yes, sorry, I was just trying to say I have got it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Fantastic. Okay, so declarations of interest. Anybody?
So, yes, Chair. It's not exactly a declaration of interest, but I think you got the same declaration as me. Is that we're aware that Mr. Mason is a member of the Labour Party, and so are we. But it's not exactly a declaration of interest. But I just wanted it put on record.
Yep, and
Okay.
that's the same with me. Same thing applies. Okay, so shall we just go around and just introduce ourselves very quickly? I'm Gilbert Smith. I'm a Stoke Newington councillor. I'm chairing this evening's meeting. Amanda.
My name's Amanda North from Legal Services, and I'm assisting members advising.
Councillor Patrick.
Councillor Sean Patrick, Kings Park Ward.
Mr. Hopkins.
Chair, I'm here for item 2. I'm representing Plump Golf.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, we may as well do everybody, see who's in the online room. Mr. Atkins.
Good evening, it's Peter Atkins from Hackney Police Licensing Unit.
Oh, hi. Thank you. We have Mr. Chewett.
Hi, David Chewett, Team Leader, Licensing and Technical Support.
Thank you. Mr. Mason. Mr. Mason. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
You're on mute, Mr. Mason, I think. He's speaking, but we can't hear him.
Okay, Mr. Mason, if you could just try and work out your technical difficulties and we'll move on. Mr. Scott.
Hi there, I'm the director at Plump Golf and owner.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
Hi there, I'm Fraser. I'm a resident in Martello Street.
Fantastic. Is it Kerry Bassett-Ryan?
Hello, yes, Kerry Ryan from Hackney Police Licensing.
Oh, hi there, Kerry. And we have Mr. Fleming.
Hi, Kevin Fleming, Secretary of the London Fields User Group and local resident park user.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Rabia?
She's on mute. You're
Suba?
on mute.
I'm from Governance Services.
Brilliant, thank you. Suba?
I'm Subhashri Ramana, Principal Licensing Officer.
Thank you very much. And there's an unknown person here. Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Stephen Rowe. I'm a resident on Mare Street.
Fantastic. And anyone I've missed, can you just chip in now? Would be useful. Anybody I've missed on there? Mr. Mason, we still can't hear you if you're trying to speak.
Good evening, Councillor. My name is Luke Elford. I'm the solicitor representing 5 Points Brewery.
Okay, sorry I missed you.
That's okay.
There's a long list of names on here. Mr. Mason is the applicant for this first case. We still can't hear you.
Chair, I can see he's just left. The advice from Mario was for him to leave and then rejoin.
Okay. Oh, he's back now. Let's have a look. Just give him 1 second. Mr. Mason, can you try again, please?
Yeah, I'm trying again. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. We can hear you now.
I'm sure the system was telling me I was unmuted, but you couldn't hear me, so I'm sorry about that.
Okay, great.
There's lots of technical glitches.
My name is Ed Mason. I'm the managing director of the 5 Points Brewing Company and the premises license applicant for that item.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on. We've elected the chair. We've had declarations of interest. Now I'll take you through the hearing procedure, which essentially it works in various steps. So the licensing officer will outline the report. That's 5 minutes. The applicant would present their case. That's 5 minutes. And then we have responsible authorities. They have 5 minutes as well. And then other persons. Then we have a discussion, closing remarks, clarifications. We consider the case. And then you will get a result essentially sent to you within, I think, 10 days. Is that correct, Amanda? Something like that?
5 working days it's meant to be.
Yeah,
yes.
5 working days.
We try to work towards that.
Yeah, brilliant. So if I could invite the licensing officer, please, to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for 61 Mastery for the hours in the agenda. The police licensing and 2 other persons' objection remains. The police and the applicant have submitted additional information which has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Applicant's case, who's presenting that?
That would be me, Chair. Thank you. Good evening. And thank you for organising this meeting. As you've heard, I appear alongside my client, Mr. Mason from 5 Points Brewing Company. We've applied for a premises licence on the terms set out in your agenda papers. The premises is effectively a craft brewery with an ancillary tap room. I've submitted for your consideration a case summary which basically sets out the bones of everything I would like to say to you, and also a response to the objections that have been raised by the various objectors. The site itself already benefits from a premises licence, and that is for off sales only, and it has done so since 2016. There haven't been any problems at the premises, there have been no issues, and there's no enforcement history for you to be aware of. The applicant, 5 Points Brewery, also run a pub called the Pembury Tavern, and that's going to become important a little bit later on, and I will explain to you why. Effectively, aside from the hours that we already benefit from, we're applying to add on sales on a Thursday, Friday and Saturday until 11 p.m, which falls within the hours set out in your statement of licensing policy. The on sales are needed for the tap room and also for brewery tours that we would conduct at the brewery. This is a large site, and the consumption of alcohol will take place both indoors and outdoors. The outdoor area has been used over the past 5 or so years through temporary event notices, with minimal issues occurring over that time. We recognised immediately upon, or even before rather, making this application that the outside area could be sensitive, and so on that basis we proposed from the outset that the outside area will close earlier at 10 p.m, which is again in line with your statement of licensing policy. We've suggested a significant number of conditions, and they are all set out for you in your papers. The best set of conditions to look at, councillors, are the ones that are at the end of my case summary, because they are the most up-to-date version. Some of the conditions replicate things that are on the existing premises licence, and then there are additional conditions that we have offered that deal with what is effectively the new thing here, and that is customers being allowed into the premises. The application, as you heard, received objections from the police, from licensing, and from 3 local residents. Happily, through dialogue, one of the local residents has withdrawn his or her objection and has said that they are happy with the application. There is also a further representation from a local resident in support of the application. To us, Chair, there seem to be 2 main issues remaining in relation to this application. The first is whether the applicant should be obliged to employ SIA licensed door supervisors on Friday or Saturday nights. The second is the operation of the outside area. I don't think that there's anyone who is asking for the whole application itself to be refused. I'm going to deal with the demand for SIA door supervisors first, if I may. And I would like to go on record and say that there is absolutely no reluctance on the part of the applicant to have SIA licensed door supervisors at this premises. I think in the police officer's additional information, that has been put slightly unfairly when he was referred to a reluctance on the part of the applicant to have SIA licensed door supervisors. Make no mistake, the applicant will employ SIA door supervisors if they need to. Where our approach differs from the police is that we believe it would be better to have a suitable number of SIA door supervisors based upon a risk assessment, rather than an arbitrary number of SIA door supervisors required on a Friday and Saturday night. It falls to me to explain to you why our approach is the correct one for you to take. First, who better to know the level of security that a premises is going to need than the people with day-to-day oversight of the business? That's us. The applicant operates a similar system at the Penbury Tavern, and at the Penbury Tavern there is no requirement to have SIA door supervisors. There is no condition that obliges us, as there would be here, to have a risk assessment. At the Penbury Tavern we do it because it's the right thing to do, and that is all we are asking to do here. Second, imposing a fixed number of SIA door supervisors on a premises licence fails to take account of the ebbs and flows that are experienced by businesses throughout the months of the year. For example, a premises may be very busy on a Friday night in June with lots of customers enjoying nice weather. But the same is not also true of a very wet Friday night in February, where you might only have 1 or 2 people in, but you've still got to have these 2 SIA door supervisors. You're also in a bind because you can't then send those door supervisors home for lack of custom, because you would be committing a criminal offence. All we're asking for is to be able to assess the need for SIA door supervisors as and when the need arises. Thirdly, the request for SIA door supervisors from the police is predicated on an assumption, and it's an assumption that's not backed up by any evidence, and that is that the premises will be absolutely full to bursting every and Friday and Saturday night. We know from good experience of dealing with other licensed premises, and I know from my clients up and down the country, that that isn't actually how it works in practice. Seldom are premises absolutely full and disgorging the full number of customers at the same time. It doesn't work that way. So we respectfully disagree with the police on that. Staff are going to be trained to an extremely high standard Our dispersal policy is as comprehensive a dispersal policy as you'll see. And I suppose the final point to make on door supervisors, Chair, is that they're not cheap. They come at a cost. It's a cost that we are happy to bear based upon our risk assessment and on business patterns, but not every Friday and Saturday throughout the year. That's backed up by the Section 182 guidance, and for your learned legal advisor, that's paragraph 1010, which reminds licensing authorities to bear in mind the indirect costs associated with conditions. And that, for obvious reasons, is now more important than ever. Conditions need to be appropriate and proportionate to what they intend to achieve. Our view is that our condition, the risk-assessed SIA licensed door supervisors, does that, and the police request doesn't. Moving now to the outside area. Look, we absolutely understand.
You've got 1 minute left.
Yeah, we absolutely understand the concerns raised by the local residents. As I said from the very beginning, we were mindful and we chose to close the outside area at 10 p.m. in line with your policy. In addition to that, we've now offered a condition that we won't seat additional customers after 9 p.m. and we won't serve alcohol outside after 9:30. Comprehensive dispersal policy, and also an offer of a noise limiter on any entertainment system. We have established a dialogue with the residents of Cordwainer House, and they can come to us if they experience any problems. We've always been extremely proactive in relation to any complaints that have been received. This is an extremely responsible operator who knows how to manage premises and knows how to respond to issues. I think I'll leave things there. Very happy to take any questions that you may have for us. And obviously, I'm happy to pick up anything that arises in the course of the objections. Thank you, Councillor. Those are my submissions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just like to ask members for any points of clarification. Councillor Patrick, would you like any of those areas clarified at all?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, happy for that? So we can move on. I mean, I'm pretty happy. That was a fairly comprehensive statement there. So now we move on to the responsible authorities case, please. That's the licensing to make a representation. Mr. Tuitt.
Thank you very much, Chair. My representation is at Appendix B2 within today's agenda. So you can see that I've raised some concerns initially in relation to the on-sales potentially having a negative impact on the promotion of the licensing objectives and the large external area which is close to residential flats at the rear. I can say though that the applicant Mr. Elford in dialogue has addressed many of those concerns, just in relation to the area which is used and the area within the external area that extends.
Is that the railway arches?
Yeah, so that area that extends underneath the railway arches, as you can see there in the image, it's
is
used
that
for kegs.
Is that the one that's designated as storage on the plan?
It's designated as storage on the plan, but I just wanted to make sure that it was. I couldn't, as has been referred to in the additional submission, I couldn't make it to the site meeting, but it has been confirmed that those areas are used for storage. So that's fine. And you can see that the applicant has agreed to close the external area at 10 p.m, which is consistent with the council's licensing policy for external areas. I guess the reason I haven't quite withdrawn the representation completely, it's just, I think where we do still have some concerns from residents just in relation to potential undermining of the licensing objectives. I did just feel that it'd be useful maybe to still be a party within this application, but I can say that many of the issues that I've raised in that initial representation have been addressed, and also as Mr. Elford has said, the applicant is known to us. He does run the Pembury Tavern, which is at Pembury Circus, and it's a premises which we've not have really had many problems with since it's been under their ownership. So I'll just leave it I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Can I just ask you a couple of questions based on the questions that you put forward?
Yeah.
Have you had a response with the maximum number of customers that can be accommodated on the site? Were you satisfied with that answer?
We had a discussion about that. We didn't agree a specific number, but I think the issue around that is just the size of the area and being able to manage that at all the time. I think that for the applicant would be an issue. So
Yeah.
I think
what about smokers?
I think that's a fair response. In terms of smokers, I'm not sure if we did agree something on that, so maybe that's something we could reach today.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we'll go
Mr.
to...
Elwood was raising his hand, Gilbert.
Sorry, yeah, thank you for that. Who was that?
The applicant solicitor.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Elford, sorry, I didn't see you.
It was just to say on smokers,
Sorry.
we have offered a condition of 10 smokers outside the premises after 10 p.m. 10 p.m. being when we envisage the yard closing. Up until that point, they will smoke there. After 10 p.m., between 10 and 11 p.m., it would be on Mayor Street, and that would be no more than 10 smokers. And that's within the list of conditions I've referred you to.
Okay, that's useful. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on now to the other person's case. So these would be the residents that are objecting or supporting. I think we've got Steve. Is it Steve Rowe?
Stephen Rowe, yes.
Hi there, Stephen.
Hi.
Thank you for this.
So I like to say that overall, I'm not objecting to the application, but I do object to the playing of loud music up to 10 p.m. Up to now, there have been events that have finished at 8 p.m. and that has been disruptive, but because we know it's finishing at 8 p.m., it's been acceptable. But continuing beyond that to 10 p.m. just is too much of a nuisance. This is a block with many families with small children, and that's after their bedtime. We've had problems with children our child going to sleep with the noise, and other residents have also objected on that basis. There doesn't seem to be anything in the conditions that would prevent music being played between 8 and 10 p.m. And so we would ask that that is included as a condition. We don't object to people being there, but it's the playing of loud music that's the problem.
Is that it? Are you happy?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, great.
So, Councillor, police have made an objection, so they need to present their case.
Oh, sorry. Forgot about them. They're quite important, aren't they? Okay, sorry about that.
So before we move on, could I just ask Mr. Rowe, just for clarification, you're talking about music coming out the building, the tap room, as it's to call it that, rather than the yard?
No, I'm talking about music in the yard. So every time there's an event, they put in large loudspeakers and have a DJ, and there's very loud music playing. So that is the nuisance.
Right, thank you. That's what I wanted to know, where it's coming from.
Yeah.
In the yard. Okay, thank you. Sorry for that.
That's okay.
Yeah, apologies to the police. If you can now chip in, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. Please accept my apologies initially. I'm on quite a bad internet connection. It's dropped out a couple of times, so if I do disappear, it's not just because I've hung up. Our objection, we did visit the premises and met with the applicant representative, and we did make reference to it being a large size in our initial reps. But I think going down there and becoming familiar with the size and the numbers and the operation of how it's going to be almost separated into two parts gives us concerns around the dispersal. Effectively, this is going to be two separate dispersals, and when the outside area closes at 10 o'clock, I believe the internal area is going to accommodate as many people as it can, and the rest will be left to leave the premises. In terms of the dispersal, the rear gates that lead onto the street, but there's residents' premises that back onto that. So we're concerned about the noise and disruption it may cause to them. And we just think that the SI will be a valuable resource in assisting with that dispersal. And I appreciate Mr. Alford says that in practical, it's not always going to be a maximum capacities, but there are times that there are going to be capacities. And if there is times when it is at full capacity, when there aren't SIA on or enough staff to accommodate or assist with that dispersal, I believe that's when we're going to start seeing issues.
Yeah. You happy? Yep. Mr. Atkins happy with that, yeah?
Yeah, unless there's anything Kerry Ryan would like to contribute as well.
Ms. Ryan?
No, not just yet. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any other persons there at all? Is it just one? Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Should we move on to the discussion phase then? I mean, I have a question really just about the DPS that you've got there. Are they normally on the premises or are they normally away from the premises? I mean, it doesn't matter either way, but it's just be interesting to find out.
So, Chair, at the moment, for the purposes of the application, and we're still, you'll have to bear with us, in construction phase, Mr. Mason is the DPS. When we get closer to opening, we will be looking to appoint an operations manager. I think our operations manager is called Ben Winders, isn't that right, Ed? He would be the DPS come the premises opening. But at the moment, we're still very much in construction. So it won't be Mr. Mason long term, but it will be the manager on site who is the DPS.
And just in terms of numbers of staff versus numbers of customers, the maximum number of customers that you can have in there, basically, and the number of staff. Could you just give us those figures, please?
Yes, Chair, at the moment, those are indicative figures. We've carried out a pre-occupation fire risk assessment, which puts internal figures at around 100 plus staff and around 150 outside plus staff. Ed, I don't know if you had any comments for the councillors on how many staff you're proposing to have at the brewery at different times of the day in terms of your operation. Can you clear that up for them, please?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
No, I mean, there won't be a set minimum or maximum number of staff at this stage. What we will do is we will rota according to the forecast busyness of the venue. And of course, it will be absolutely in our best interests to have as many staff as are needed, because we don't want customers to be waiting a long period of time to be served. Bottom line is we want to look after, provide an excellent customer service. And so certainly we would never scrimp or save on kind of staff numbers or staff costs. We would always seek to have the adequate number of staff on the premises. But we have, and I have, operated hospitality venues for a long period of time. As we referred to earlier, we've operated the Pembury Tavern for 2.5 years. So we're sort of very au fait. I've had a premises license personally for, I think, 12 years now. We're very au fait with the operational needs of a hospitality business, and we would always seek to staff it according to the needs of the business. A Thursday night in February or during dry January is going to be a very different staffing requirement from a busier Saturday afternoon in the middle of summer. So, I hope that kind of gives some sort of context at least.
Yeah. Councillor Patrick, thank you for that, Mr. Mason. Councillor Patrick, any questions?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from the objector about their objection about noise coming out the premises. I see you're going to put in a limiter and say that no, and you've put in a condition in that no noise will be audible outside. But looking at the history, the residents who haven't come say they have rejected about noise from the premises, and they've been told by, I don't necessarily you personally, but your staff, that they just have to put up with the noise, and the it's you or your staff have refused to turn the noise down when they've complained?
Yes, Councillor. Ed's going to deal with this for you. When we received the objections, we conducted an investigation into this and we looked at what complaints we had actually received. To the best of our knowledge, there were 2 complaints, just 2, over the summer. The first was during a live comedy event, and in response to that, the music was turned down the sound level was turned down instantly, and for subsequent events, the speakers were relocated in such a way that we received no further complaints. Ed, I don't know if you just want to flesh that out a little bit. I don't think anyone was told just to lump it at all, were they?
No, and that that absolutely is not our style. I think it's just not the way that we operate as a company. I was somewhat taken aback to see that particular representation, and it did prompt us to undertake a sort of thorough survey of all of our staff who had worked events in the summer. Just in context, over this summer period post lockdown, when we were able to reopen, we held a number of events in the yard, 18 in total. It was in terms of temporary event notices, there were fewer than 18 actual event notices applied for. But when I say 18 events, 18 separate days on which we operated externally, and we the only complaints we are aware of are the complaints that were made in person on the Thursday evening when we had the live comedy event. And all I would say is that we've certainly had lessons learned from having a live comedy night outside. I don't think we'd have one again, I'm afraid, because there's something about the way the voice is carried on the microphone, and it was lessons learned. We moved the speakers around to point in a different direction the following weekend and had no further complaints. I think it's also probably worth noting that we've certainly had no objections raised to us from the council. One of the representations said that there had been numerous complaints to the council, but if there had been some, they haven't been passed to us, I'm afraid. And the EHO department did make an initial representation about our application, but in it they didn't mention at all any complaints or any concerns about our approach to complaints, and all of their requests for conditions were accepted. So no, I'm a bit of a loss to explain that particular allegation, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, all I can say is that our doors always remain open. We have open links with the Cordwainer House Residents Association. In the letters that we sent to there were 3 residents' representations against, one of which has now been withdrawn. So there are two against and 1 in favour. And in our letter to the 3 initial objectors, we gave my email address, our phone number, and emphasise the fact that we are very, very keen to maintain a dialogue and work with residents to ensure that we don't make an impact. And of course, it's a condition on the licence that there shall be no noise from the premises which causes a disturbance, and that's a legal condition on the licence which we're committed to abide by, coupled of course with our condition that we volunteered about having a noise limiter on the premises.
Can I make
Councillor Pat? Yeah, come in, please. Yeah.
It's just that up to now the music has always stopped at 8 o'clock, and the difference between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. is quite a major difference. So if the music had been going on till 10 p.m., there would have been much more objections, and that's the reason we're objecting, because 8 p.m. is a reasonable time to stop. 10 p.m. is not reasonable. 3 nights a week just couldn't be tolerated.
Mr. Elford.
Just to clarify, Chair, we haven't applied to provide regulated entertainment as part of this application. It's covered under deregulation. We don't need it on our licence.
Okay. Councillor Patrick, do you need to ask any more questions at all?
Yeah, I mean, all the complaints do make loud noise and music. So I hear what Mr. Mason said about how he runs his premises, and I don't think the Pembury has music, so I do wonder how he's going to manage. I know it doesn't need to be on the license, but that there are complaints about music. And I know I did ask the officers earlier about where the complaints were, and they do think that maybe they've got ability on the council's IT systems being hacked, and some information has gone missing, and they don't know whether that information might have been the information that's got hacked and gone missing. So that may be why the council hasn't responded to saying it's had the noise complaints. But I take it you're not the person, Mr. Rowe, that wrote that. You're not Appendix C2.
No, I'm not.
No, okay.
Objective to the time of the notice.
Mr. Elford wants to come back.
Just to say, councillors, and I'm sure your legal advisor will be aware, I don't think you can assume that the complaints have disappeared from the council system. Environmental health are a statutory consultee to this application and did not object at all. And that, we submit, has to be taken as a rather big tick in the applicant's favour. And I think it's fair to say that if there had been complaints, environmental health would have been taking them up with us.
Can I ask a question, please? In the conditions under the Prevention of Public Nuisance, the number 2, it says no noise generated from licensable activities on the premises which gives rise to a nuisance. Can we just dig a bit deeper into this? Is this because you've got the noise limiter now that you think it won't cause a nuisance? I mean, ultimately, how often are you likely to be playing music is another part of that question.
So the no noise generated from licensable activities, which gives rise to a nuisance, is quite a widespread condition around premises, and I'm sure perhaps Mr. Chewett can explain how that's interpreted from a council side. We've offered to put a noise limiter on any musical entertainment system. We've not applied for regulated entertainment because we're not required to, because it's been deregulated until 11 p.m, or in this case until 10 p.m. in outdoors. We don't need to have it on our license to do it. In terms of how often or how likely we are to play music, I think it's fair to say that we will have occasional events where there will be music played. We're not looking to go late into the evening with that. Generally speaking, the music is going to be background in nature and will contribute to the atmosphere. Ed, do you have anything that you wanted to say about music other than the things I've already covered?
No, I mean, you know, just to put it in context for those who may be not familiar with the site or the events that we've run previously, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, I wasn't sure. I was about to have another crash. Yeah, no, I mean, this is not, for example, a live music venue. You know, in the 18 different events that we had this summer and autumn, we didn't have any live bands. The only sort of live entertainment was that comedy night. And generally speaking, it's either background music on a playlist or we did have DJs playing. But the DJs, you know, I would submit, you know, it's not about having an Ibiza dance party with, you know, sort of raving music. It's DJs to create a scene. And I was pleased to hear that Mr. Rowe said he felt that in his experience, it hadn't caused an undue nuisance operating up until 8 o'clock. But he had some concerns about what it might do in the future. But of course, that's why we're, as you say, you know, that's why we're committing not to cause a nuisance, and it's why we're committing to have a noise limiter on the system. You know, we absolutely do not want to pee off our neighbours. You know, we would like our neighbours to be coming down and drinking at the tap room and enjoying our services, and, you know, spending money across our bar and having a nice time, not being cheesed off. So you know, genuinely, we do not. This is not about a live music venue or You know, it's about an ancillary use of a production brewery and warehouse operation, where on an ancillary basis on sort of Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, you know, we invite people to drink our beer on site. And yeah, I mean, I hope that helps in terms of, you know, the nature of the intended offer, and what we've done so far.
Mr. Mason, just to come back on the dispersal policy that the police are worried about, I mean, can you give them, I mean, I'm sure you've tried to give them reassurance already, but they're still not reassured enough. I mean, is there anything more we can do to kind of get them into a position where they're happy?
Well, following the initial application, in the dialogue subsequently, we made a couple of concessions or offers voluntarily. We offered, although the external area will operate until 10, we volunteered to cease all alcohol sales at 9:30, and we also offered to not add any new customers to the outside area after 9 p.m. You know, to try and sort of maximise the kind of wind down, the slow down. You know, so no additional customers will be allowed in post 9 o'clock, and we will cease alcohol sales at 9:30. So I hope that's a sort of indication of, you know, we're not hell bent on squeezing in every last person right up until 10 o'clock. You know, it's about having a sort of sensible, measured wind down. And I mean, in terms of dispersal, you know, I hope that is a good an hour of kind of wind down.
I think the police were worried about people going into the inside of the venue. You know, once the outdoor space shuts a bit early, they're worried about they just might move inside. I mean, obviously for inside you're limited to 100. If you've got 150 outside and they all want to go inside, then that's not going to be feasible, is it?
No, indeed, and not everybody will be able to come indoors, you know. But that presupposes that at 10 o'clock we're going to have 150 people on site. But it's, you know, there's about 3 weeks of the year where it stays light until 10 p.m. You know, it's kind of, in our experiences from the events in the summer, even when we were running till 8 or 9, you know, there is no appetite, you know, for staying out that late in our experience. You know, that these things have a natural, you know. No, but
you haven't been over London Fields Park then,
well, no, London Fields Park is maybe a different kettle of fish, but you know, like, you know, we absolutely, you know, we you know, I think that the main issue with the police's concern is this issue of SIA, and as I say, you know, we have volunteered a condition on, you know, it is a condition that we've proposed on the license that we will use SIA staff, but on the basis of a risk assessment. And so rather than being obliged, come what may, to always have two on a Friday and Saturday, even in the middle of winter when there might be 30 people or 20 people inside and nobody outside, we should have a sensible, measured approach, which, as I understand it, you know, from our sort of research and anecdotally, it tends to be the standard type of condition that SIA, you know, is done on a risk assessed basis, not a kind of arbitrary basis.
Yeah. And in terms of the tours, have you always operated tours there? I mean, I'd just like to get a little picture of the tap room situation, and how the tours work before you would have this license. How did that all work? So
the tours at the brewery. So the tours are a sort of mid-afternoon thing. Typically, they would be at noon and at 3 p.m. They're sort of 25 people. They buy a ticket in advance, and they have a guided tour of the brewery, and then a sort of tutored tasting. It takes them through the different beers that we produce, kind of afterwards.
Yeah. And what's prompted you, apart from economic reasons, to go for this alcohol license? Straight question, straight answer.
No, sure. Well, no. So we've never. So historically, our brewing was conducted on a different site, under some railway arches elsewhere in the borough, and we've recently relocated to this site because we've managed to negotiate a longer term lease with the landlord at Mare Street, which has meant that we can now sort of consolidate our operations in one location, and you know, we have the space available. At the previous brewery location, it was a much smaller space, and there wasn't space to have a tap room. Whereas we can now, you know, welcome guests onto site. We have the space. Fundamentally, we have the space to do it. where we didn't have the space before.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm pretty content,
Mr.
Councillor Patrick. Any further questions from you?
Yeah, going back to the door supervisors, I just wonder whether I can see both points of view, both the police and the breweries, but I wonder whether rather than I'd be interested what the police have to say, rather than having a condition that you have to have two per se, whether it'd be worth putting the condition on regard you have a door supervisor, which we often seem to do, per number of customers. Which, if you had, I don't know, under 50 customers, you had one. If you had 100 customers on the premises, you have two, or whatever. Whatever whatever the incremental be. I don't know what the police think about that, but we've certainly done that in the past on premises. Had door supervisors gone to how many customers on the premises. That might solve having two door supervisors on a wet Thursday night when perhaps there's no customers, but making sure there's adequate door supervisors on a busy Friday night.
Mr. Elford, you had your hand raised.
Just a point in response to doing it by way of numbers rather than by way of risk assessment. The difficulty you have with numbers is that, let's say you've got a condition on your license that says if you have 100 customers, you have one SIA door supervisor, 101 plus customers, 2 SIA door supervisors. You can get into a situation where you haven't got the right number of door supervisors when the 101st customer turns up. It's much better for us to be able to risk assess, plan ahead, look at how many door supervisors we're going to need. We're going to know when we're going to be busy and when we're likely to need more security staff or less security staff. And by doing that and by conducting a risk assessment, it allows us to plan ahead, to cost it, and to make that work. Arbitrary numbers of door supervisors, whether it's based on time or numbers of people, we think will cause a problem. I appreciate it's been done elsewhere. We don't think it's right for our business.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elford. I would like to give the police an opportunity just to come in here, because I think we need to just spend a little bit of time trying to resolve the dispersal stuff, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Would you mind, Kerry, coming in on this, maybe?
I thought it's Stacey Atkins.
Well, I think they're both there to represent the police.
Yeah, there's two of us. I think what we're most concerned about is, Dave and I have done nights every weekend since this time last year. So we have seen the area in all seasons. And it is our experience that people will stay out as late as they can. And often they'll stay out on the streets after the venues have closed because they're not ready to go home yet. And our concerns are that if they are at full capacity and there's 150 people pushed out onto the streets, that's going out with one door, where there's 100 people still inside the building, and they will be dispersed through another door an hour later. Who is going to be available? Who is going to push all those people towards the transport hubs and away from the local residents? Because a statutory noise nuisance is much louder than a regular music nuisance to a local resident. Very difficult to prove a statutory noise nuisance to the council noise officers. And if there's local young families living nearby, that constant bass sound can be really disturbing and can make lives miserable. What else was I going to say? Have you got anything to say, Dave?
Mr. Atkins? Are you there? Hello?
Oh, yeah, maybe he's gone. One solution that we came up with is that both the areas, the inside and the outside area, close at the same time. That way we've got one dispersal. They go out of one door and the staff are then available to disperse everybody at the same time. And that would then allay our fears, because we would have, or we would say that we could have maybe one SIA door supervisor that could assist with the dispersal with, say, a couple of hundred people, with more employed on a risk assessment basis, and everybody being dispersed at the same time.
Okay, can we put that then to Mr. Elford? Mr. Elford.
Sorry, no, that's an even worse idea. What we've proposed is a staggered dispersal. It's entirely the kind of dispersal that is envisaged by the Licensing Act. What the police are asking us to do is dump out a lot of people all at the same time, and to make the time earlier, which is going to make things, in our view, it's just going to make things worse. Look, the scenario that the police officer, that Miss Ryan highlighted, of a very busy evening, that would be the evening when our risk assessment would tell us that we need SIA licensed door supervisors, and we would have those SIA licensed door supervisors to deal with the dispersal from the premises. I have some difficulty with this idea that these are two separate premises. They're not two separate premises. The distance from one to the other is about 15 to 20 yards, and it's all contained within one site. I'd ask you, councillors, to think about your experiences of pubs and pub gardens. You know, when a pub garden closes, the people that can do move inside, or they move inside earlier to secure a place inside. And if there's not space for those additional people, then they'll have to go home. We'll have the staff to assist, and the SIA staff as and when we're busy enough to warrant them. But the idea of shutting the premises earlier and forcing everyone out at the same time is counterintuitive.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, you know, the committee need to be assured, ultimately, if we're going to grant this, that you know, the licensing objectives will be not undermined ultimately. So, you know, we were seeking as much reassurance from you as possible, and we were kind of getting it. Councillor Patrick, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm still not quite. I understand both points of view. Both 5 points and the police. You keep talking about that if you have to have store supervisors per numbers, you may not have the right number if it goes over by one. But surely, if you risk assess for some reason that it's going to be a quiet night, and it turns out not to be a quiet night for some reason, so, you know, maybe it's cold and dark, but a group of people decide they want to come and celebrate someone's birthday in the pub, and a large group of people, you know, come down and stay to the end, drinking lots of beer. You're not going to be able to risk assess that. So I can see the police, you know, want to be more careful than perhaps a risk assessment, because you don't know. I can see that you can think, yeah, it's a July day, it's warm, it's sunny, we're going to be busy, but you can't risk assess for something that's not planned, for groups of people or lots of people deciding for whatever reason they want to come out and drink, and you haven't got any door supervisors on duty. So I can see the police's point of view. They wish to be more careful. Now, we've got neighbours living nearby, and I understand you want to run a good business and work with your neighbours and have them come in and be your customers. But we also have a duty to protect the residents, and that's what the police are trying to do. And we're trying to find a medium where we can agree some conditions, but we don't seem to be meeting anywhere in the middle.
I mean, a good question to ask, maybe, Councillor Patrick, would be, you know, I mean, I know this is a kind of new venture, but Mr. Mason or Mr. Elford, in the past, when you run events, I mean, have you gone to maximum capacity in any of those events ever? I mean, are you likely to have ever 250 people in there? I mean, I know it's a difficult question, but you know, you've got experience with that venue for a few months to years or whatever it is. If you could just come back on that point.
Councillor, I don't think the events are a particularly good indicator of the way in which the premises is going to operate. The events were one-off ad hoc things. This is about how the premises is going to operate longer term with a tap room function.
Yeah, okay, and we don't know is what you're saying.
Well, yeah. we as the business will be able to look at, from the data that we have, we know when we're likely to be busy and when we're not likely to be busy. And on that basis, we will risk assess the need for SIA door supervisors. And it may be that to begin with, we get it wrong a couple of times. It may be that we hire in more SIA door supervisors than are necessary for a very quiet night. We have to send some home. And it may be that we have an evening where we get a little bit busier. What the risk assessment allows us to do is to look at these things and plan accordingly and move forwards. We can
Is that
get
based on the weather? Is that based on the weather, time of year, the weather, you know? So.
All of those things, Councillor, all of those things, the weather, time of year, you know, with the outside area is very open. It's likely to be used, you would think, from around March to October time. I think there'll be very limited use for it in November, December, January and February. People just aren't going to want to be out there in the cold, horrible British winter. And to be obligated to have SIA door supervisors during those times, it just doesn't work. And it's a cost that the business is going to have to pick up. You know, you have to hire SIA door supervisors in blocks. They come in pairs. The costs mount up very, very quickly. We would far rather that we're allowed to risk assess the need for SIA. And look, there's been no incidents of crime and disorder that could give rise to a concern that we need these SIA licensed door supervisors. When we've had them, we've not had any crime and disorder. And when we haven't had them, we've not had any crime and disorder. Ed, anything you want to say on SIA door supervisors?
I mean, it's clearly a bit of a sticking point, and you know, like our ethos is always very much to try and meet in the middle, or try and come up with a compromise. You know, I mean, I hear Councillor Patrick's point that she sees merit in both our viewpoints, and clearly, you know, we're quite keen that this doesn't drag on all evening, and I just wonder whether, you know, if we were sat next to each other in the committee room, Luke would probably be kicking me under the table right now. But I just wonder whether you know, I think, speaking as an operator, an acceptable compromise for us as an operator, in the interest of trying to meet midway, is to say that on those occasions, on a Friday and Saturday, when the external area is open, that we will have a minimum of one SIA on after 7 p.m. On those when the external area is operating, and I think that sort of feels to me to be maybe a fair and sensible compromise. That you know, when it's not any time, any season, you know, middle of Feb when we've got 20 people inside and we're shut outside because it's 0 degrees outside, we're not obliged to have 2 door staff on. But that on those occasions when we do have the outdoors open on a Friday and Saturday after 7 p.m, then we will have a minimum of one. That is something that I'm minded to volunteer.
Would you expect the Friday and Saturday to be, or sorry, the Thursday to be as busy as the Friday and Saturday?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I think I stand to be corrected, but I think in the police request they've actually only requested the Friday and Saturday, actually.
Okay, that's all.
Well, thank you,
I
Mr.
thought
Mason.
Thursday was the new Friday, but yeah, that is very helpful. But you keep talking about you haven't had any problems, but as far as I'm aware, these are new premises, and apart from the 10s that you've had over the summer, there hasn't been any on sales, or you haven't been operating it as a tap room. I know that we've been told there's no problems at the Pembury. So I don't really think, that's a fair comment in the sense, because you haven't been operating. There may not have been any problems because you haven't been operating. But I do thank you for that volunteering that, and I think that's a good compromise. I don't know what the police think. I don't know if they're on the line.
Yeah. If the police would like to come back on that, please, that'd be great.
Hello. Yeah, apologies. My line cut out earlier on. I was unable to unmute my
don't worry.
phone. Yeah, I think that's something we could definitely compromise. I mean, would the applicant be mindful to say that condition, and then any further would be on a risk assessment basis?
Okay.
Okay.
Amanda, would you like to chip in on that? Do you have an opinion? Have you got written that down? Okay. We'll have to formulate that condition.
Yeah, he's offered to have one SIA on Friday and Saturdays.
Yeah.
No.
Friday and Saturday.
When the external area is open.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the external. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think
I'm sorry, and it was in the evening, like after 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry, after 7 p.m. Friday and Saturday, when the external area is open.
And
will that person, after the external area closes, move into the internal area to help with the dispersal there?
Did everyone hear that question?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a yes. Yeah. Okay.
Just checking. Not going to send them home after they've.
Look,
I didn't think you would, but I just wanted to get that on record.
I mean, I think everyone's feeling a little bit better about things now.
Yeah.
So if everyone's happy to move on, I'll just give you one second.
Can I just make a comment?
Okay, yes, come in, please. Go on ahead.
I don't think the concerns in relation to noise have been answered. Noise up to 10 p.m. loud music is not acceptable. And if that's not regulated other than through the license, then I don't think the license should be
We
granted.
can't regulate it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But they have made an allowance to put a noise limiter in there if they do have music, and music's not going to be the predominant sort of feature of the venue.
That has been the predominant nuisance of the venue.
Okay.
In the recent past.
Okay. Well, we need to let's spend a couple more minutes on that, just very briefly. Mr. Mason, do you want to come back in on this, because it's quite an important issue?
So we've got a noise limiter condition.
I'll defer to Luke for a minute. I'll defer to Luke.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
We've got a noise limiter condition, councillors, and what the noise limiter does is it sets the noise level at a level that cannot cause disturbance to local residents, and all music has to be played via that noise limiter. There hasn't been a noise limiter at the premises over the summer and these events that are complained of. There wasn't a noise limiter. I ask you to bear in mind that we only received 2 complaints over the summer.
Was it finished at 8 p.m?
Environmental Health haven't objected to this application. You've got the noise limiter, you've got the conditions, you've got the extended wind down period in respect of the external area. You've now got SIA on a Friday and Saturday night, in addition to all of our staff. I'll just wait for Councillor Patrick to put her headphones back on.
So I'm still here.
Okay.
So make my ears ache.
You've got everything that should reassure you that we will not undermine the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective by way of noise. If we can provide you with any more comfort, we will do. But you know, we're happy to help in whatever way we can.
I think Mr. Rowe was talking about finishing at 8. I mean, obviously, you know, we can't condition that, but I mean, we've got to put it out there.
Yeah.
Closing the garden, closing the external.
No, turning the music off at 8.
Yeah.
The difficulty you're going to have there is I'm not sure you can condition that. You may
can't.
need to take some legal advice from Amanda on that. If it helps, we're happy to say that we will only play background music after 9 p.m. if that helps, but that's the best we're going to be able to do for you on that.
Well, I think that sounds quite reasonable to me. What do you think, Mr. Rowe?
I'm not happy. I don't think that's acceptable. I still think it's going to cause disturbance, because you're saying the music previously was not music event, it was background music, but it was very loud and it was disturbing to us as residents.
Okay, Mr. Elford.
No, I wasn't saying that the previous events were background music. I was saying that the previous events were not run through a noise limiter.
And what level does the noise limiter limit it to?
A level that is not capable of causing nuisance to local residents. It will be set by an acoustician.
And if it does cause nuisance, what can we do?
You report to the council. Obviously, you could speak to the brewery, and if they carry on playing music that disturbs you, please ring the council's noise service and contact environmental health.
Thank you. In the first instance, I would suggest come to us and talk to us. We are completely open to dialogue with local residents. If you are feeling you are being disturbed, please let us know and we will do what we can to help.
Mr. Mason, I think it might be useful for you to come in here as the owner of this, just to sort of reassure Mr. Rowe.
I mean, I'm very happy to sort of volunteer. You know, I mean, as part of our operational policy, we do now have good links and a good channel of communication with a member of the committee of the Residents Association at Cordwainer House. Sorry, Mr. Rowe, are you at Cordwainer House or?
Yes, I am, but I'm not sure who that person is. We don't have a residents committee, so I'm not so sure who told you that.
Well, he's a self-proclaimed member of the Residents Committee. I'll happily. I'll have to dig it. If I had a couple of minutes, I could dig his name out. But I'm very happy to commit to before the first external event next year. I'm very happy, when we're setting the noise limiter with the to sort of do it in tandem with yourselves at Cordwainer House, by means of mobile phone or trying to ascertain that the level is set in liaison with yourselves, so that you sort of say yay or nay in terms of when we're setting that music level, because it is absolutely as a condition of the license that it should not cause a nuisance to you. So I'm very happy to to volunteer that from an operational perspective, and I don't think we have your contact details, but I'm happy to share mine and take it from there if that would help.
Okay, that would be much appreciated.
I mean, you could, I don't know, I mean, if you can do this sort of legally with GDPR and stuff, but you could share on the chat, but I suppose that's up to you guys. I mean, your contact details, I mean.
It's probably best for them to deal with it separately too.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we've reached a point where we can move on. Everyone happy?
Yeah, I think we could wind up now.
Yeah, okay. So let's so we have to give you closing remarks.
Yeah.
But we want to make them short, everyone. So if we could just have you all to come in the sort of similar orders as to how we started. So, Mr. Chewett.
Thank you, Chair, but I've nothing further to add. I think you've heard enough today.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And representatives from the police, whoever, Mr. Atkins or Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think on the agreement of the conditional 1SI, I think that would satisfy our concerns and that we wouldn't had anything further to add.
Okay, Mr. Rowe, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, brilliant. And then Mr. Where are you? Mr. Elford.
No, nothing from us, Chair. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us.
Oh, that's no problem. I hope you feel that we've given you a fair hearing. Okay, so any points of clarification at all before we conclude the meeting?
Well, not the meeting. This item.
This agenda item. Sorry.
Yeah.
So any points of clarification for this agenda item? Thank you, Councillor Patrick, for keeping me on track.
It's all right, Councillor Smith.
Okay. So I think that's it, folks. if everyone from this particular agenda item could sign off. Thank you very much for everyone attending. I hope you felt that you've had a fair hearing. I think we've reached a great compromise here. And we will consider the item after we take the next agenda item, and you will get a result within 5 working days, I believe.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. All being well.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very
You're
much
welcome.
indeed.
All the best.
Thank you. Can I ask for a 5-minute adjournment, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a 5-minute adjournment, everyone. We'll see you in 5 minutes. I'll stick my stopwatch on now. Thank you. Okay, sorry, I'm 20 seconds late.
Tut.
Okay, are we all here? All the people that we need. So this is the second item on the agenda, which is in your pack, obviously. And this one is here for Plonk Golf, Railway Arch 407, Mentmore Terrace in Hackney. So we've been through the hearing procedure before, so I don't think I need to go through that again for all the people who are here on the call. So we'll go straight ahead then to the licensing officer, please, if you wouldn't mind outlining the report.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for 407 Mentmore Terrace for the hours stated in the agenda. Only licensing and other person objection remains. The applicant has submitted some additional information which has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. If the applicant, please, could present their case in support of the application. Thank you. Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Chair. The application, Chair, as you've said, is for a new premises licence for Plonk Golf, London Fields. It's one of 4 sites that Mr. Scott operates across London. He has operated in Hackney now for about 5 years, and at this site for the past 2 years. Basically, it consists of the mini golf course on the front, which is to the rear of the arch, and the cafe and arcade inside. So the arcade is at the Mentmore Terrace end, so entrance is via the back of the building in effect. The layout is as per the plan that we've submitted. Chair, following discussions with Mr. Scott to address issues raised by Mr. Chewett and the residents in their representations, we've amended 2 of the conditions or revised them so that the use of the terrace for playing golf, drinking or eating is limited to 0800 to 2200 hours to make sure that it's entirely within the borough's framework hours, and no drinks may be taken outside of the cafe bar after 10, and only 4 smokers will be allowed outside at that time or after that time to prevent them going on the street. Secondly, we've amended proposed condition 5 at box E of the application form to add that no unaccompanied child or young person under the age of 18 will be permitted on the premises at any time. So any children there will be accompanied by their parents, not on their own. I also need briefly to clarify the capacity. The plan shows a maximum of 65 inside and a maximum of 36 outside, not the figures we put on the application. The total would be 101, but that reflects the people playing golf that wasn't taken account of on the original submission. So we're not anticipating all those people will be there all the time. Application is solely for on sales from 12 till 11. Although music can be played under deregulation, as we heard from the previous item, Mr. Scott has offered an informative that he only intends to play background music at any time. So no loud music, no live or recorded music. We don't consider that to be conducive to the nature of the premises as a mini golf venue and the arcade use of the premises. No request for off-sales or provision of late night refreshments. But out of respect for residents, we have included in dispersal policy to address possible noise issues earlier on, because they will be doing collections and deliveries up till 11 o'clock with Uber Eats. So we have put measures in the dispersal policy that you will have seen, hopefully, to address those issues. We've had discussions with police licensing, agreed with their conditions to be imposed on any premises license you may grant. And for clarity, we are quite content for their wording to take precedence over ours and to avoid any duplication. We've also had discussions with Mr. Chewett regarding his representation. As you've heard, we clarified the times for custom use of the terrace, for drinking, etc., all within framework hours. We've also reached out to the representatives, the resident representatives via licensing, following the agreement with the police, to update them on our progress and invite them to attempt mediation. Unfortunately, nobody did get in touch. I understand Mr. Chewett is not asking you to refuse them. Regarding planning, there's a planning informative, but it's not a valid rep. I can tell you that if the licence is granted, Mr. Scott will be seeking pre-application advice from the council's planning service. There's been some complication over with the government changing all the use classes from the 1st of September. But if the licence is granted, he will go ahead, seek advice from them, and make any necessary application for change of use. This is Plonk is essentially a fun place. People can go there with their family or friends to enjoy a game of golf on the mini golf course, which is in the terrace, play on the arcade machines, games such as you would have seen at Southend many years ago, the pinball machines, that sort of thing. Have something to eat from the cafe and enjoy a drink with their visit. Chair, like the rest of the hospitality trade, Plonk has suffered. It's been hit by the two lockdowns and the other restrictions. And I have to say, it's vital to us that the licence is granted, if you're so minded to do that, for the future survival of Plonk Golf at this site and the 7 local people that it employs. I will draw your attention, if I may, in passing, to advice given by the Home Office Minister of State and the LGA that licensing authorities be more pragmatic and sympathetic to hospitality applicants during COVID, bearing in mind the long-term damages caused. That is a matter for you, of course, but I would just draw that to your attention. Chair, we have proposed a whole list of robust conditions, taking into account those we've agreed with the police, to ensure that licensing objectives are fully promoted and that Plonk Golf does not add to any negative increase in the area. It's not just another a bar or a pub. We've agreed a condition with the police chair that anyone buying alcohol on the premise must be enjoying a game of golf and or enjoying the amusement arcade. They can't just go in there and drink and not use the facilities. We would estimate that the average time people would be there would be a maximum of 2 hours by the time they've had something to eat, etc., and enjoyed the game of golf. We did not and will not add to the problems in the nearby park. We're not asking, as I said, Chair, for off sales. That was agreed with the police, given the concerns about London Fields last year. And people are not permitted to take drinks, glasses or bottles off the premises. The customers will not relieve themselves in the street. They do have toilets on the premises. And we believe that the level of alcohol consumption is going to be lower. People will just basically be enjoying a drink while they play their game of golf outside or on the machines. Mr. Scott also sets his prices for alcohol at a higher level so as not to encourage high volume drinking, rather a social drink while you're having fun at golf, playing golf or the machines at Plonk. The average stay, as I've said, will be a couple of hours. If I may address briefly the general points that have been raised, there's no gaming machines on the premises, no fruit machines or anything like that. Seating and other materials outside are fire retardant. Mr. Scott has moved the gates from the middle of the yard at the back, the terrace at the back, to be adjacent to the building so that customers can just go in and out of the railway arch where the cafe is, and they won't clash with people playing golf. Both ends of the arch have been glazed or additionally glazed. I understand flush with the stonework of the premises to reduce noise escape, and the glazed door at what is in effect the back of the building, which is the entrance, has been fitted with a self-closing device. And sound breaks are being installed in the arch to reduce or dampen down people noise. So he has taken positive steps to address noise escape and prevent public nuisance. I would point out in passing that the pollution team have not objected to this application and have not expressed any concerns, and I ask you to bear that in mind. And again, as I say, that the police have not objected following agreement. Children under 18 then must leave with their parents, must leave by 7 o'clock on any night. And as I've said, no unaccompanied children. We have put the dispersal policy in. I have mentioned the capacity will have to be changed on that because I did it on the old figures. So that will go up to 101 because we've got 35 outside if they're playing golf. If they're not playing golf, then that will be lower. And that figure is not going to be reached very often, although I'm sure we'd like it to be. Under dispersal policy clause 5, the staff will monitor the terrace by CCTV and physical checks to monitor customer behaviour and customer noise to reduce the impact on residents. Again, we do not consider SIA SIA required at this premises, given the nature of the venue, that it's not a pub and the alcohol is ancillary to use of the golf course, etc. Police have not asked for SIA. We've agreed at police condition 7 that you'll see on the police representation or police letter, that door supervisors will be employed as the result of an ongoing operational risk assessment should that need be identified. I can tell members that the venue has used a number of tenders during this year and 2019. No issues arising, no complaints or objection from the police or pollution team. They've operated under Bring Your Own, which of course is perfectly legal. They don't charge a corkage fee, so there's no breach of the law there. And again, there were no issues that have been reported. I would say to you, Chair, that Mr. Scott is both an experienced and responsible operator. He's taken on board what residents and Mr. Chewett have said, reached agreement with the police. We believe that that will prevent any negative cumulative impact and ensure the licensing objectives are fully promoted. And I suggest that with the measures we've proposed and the issues I've just mentioned, that we have addressed the substance of the issues raised by the residents. On that basis, Chair, I would ask you to bear in mind the number of successful tens. I think he's used all his tens this year and there's been no issues, that you can safely grant the premises licence to Plonk Golf. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Councillor Patrick, any points of clarification there you'd like to ask?
Not at the moment, Chair.
There's a couple of quick points that I'd like to just clarify, just to get cleared up.
Sure.
In the documents, you mentioned capacity of the venue based on how that we got that wrong in the papers. But I just want to clear this up a bit. In the papers, it's 60 covers inside and 20 covers on the terrace.
Yes.
And then on the map, on the plan, it says something different. I just want to clarify exactly what this situation is in all areas on the plan, if that's okay.
Yeah, bear with me while I find the plan.
I'm just trying to find the plan myself in here.
Ditto.
Yeah, so in the mini golf area, it seems to be capped at 36 on the plan. In the bar area, or the seated area, capped at 40, and then in the arcade, capped at 25.
Yes.
So I don't know if you just want to go through each area and just tell me, or tell us rather, what's going on there.
Right. The golf course. I originally had 20 outside because that was the number of covers or seats I discussed with Mr. Scott, but I didn't take account of people playing the golf. So that capacity includes 36, is including people playing a game of golf.
Yeah, well,
who won't necessarily be inside.
Just stop there for a second. As we're on the golf part of this, that was another one of my questions. The first question in relation to the golf is, how many holes are there out there?
I think, subject to Mr. Scott telling me otherwise, it's a nine-hole golf course.
Because obviously in the picture, you can hardly classify it as a golf course.
It's a
pocket course.
Pocket course. I mean, 35 people playing out there. I think it's going to be pretty tight, right?
Right. I think to clarify this, I'm happy to settle at 20 outside, just to go forwards. Especially, we've been operating with much less than that during COVID times. And I'm happy to say 20 at any one time in the outdoor space, just to draw a line under it and push on. It's fine.
Okay. Well, I mean, looking at the pictures, Councillor Patrick, do you want to come in on this? It's quite an important point.
Yeah, I was curious also, do people pay to gain entry to the premises and then get their game of golf? Or can people just come into the premises and sit and drink and eat and pay separately for golf?
So people can come and they can either purchase around the golf and just play the golf, or they can come inside and play on our board games in the cafe area or on the arcade machines in the arcade area. There's no set cover charge to come in for the whole experience. It's merely sort of pay as you play, if you would.
Right, so there's nothing to stop the boat, because it's almost being used for people just coming and drink. That's what I was going to. So it's not linked to the golf course really. You say you've got another alternative, something?
Can I answer that for you, Councillor? If you look at the police letter from PC Atkins, that's in the appendices. It's not separately numbered. It was behind B1 in my pack. We've got condition 16 that says all sales of alcohol shall only be to those who are using the mini golf and arcade or gaming facilities. So if they're not playing golf or using the arcade, they can't come in and just have a drink.
But there's nothing to stop, sorry, there's nothing to stop someone coming in and I don't know how much the arcade games cost, but putting 10p in or a pound or whatever in and having one game on an arcade and sitting there and drinking for the rest of the time.
I think, as I mentioned, the prices that are going to be charged will be a deterrent to them just wanting to sit there drinking when they might go elsewhere and get it cheaper. There's a pub over the road. This is only intended for. Mr. Scott has advised me before that the average stay would be a maximum of, say, 2 hours.
Some of the pubs in Hackney are very expensive.
He charges higher prices than there's the pub.
Okay. Some are very cheap and some are very expensive. Okay, I'll take your word on that. Okay.
And just to sort of stick on the golf part for a minute, just looking at the picture. I don't know, Councillor Patrick, can you see the picture in the pack? There's no page number, but there's a picture of the golf area.
Yeah, the one on there's a picture and it says expansion written underneath it. Is that
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that doesn't look like a 9-hole pitch and putt or whatever.
No.
I don't know if I'm missing, if there's some areas missing here, or because it seems like there's about maybe three holes there, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott, do you want to come in and just clarify this?
Yeah.
And are these fixtures, are they permanent, these fixtures, or can you take them out?
Yeah, they can take them out. For example, we moved our Camden course this morning in 3 hours. It's all very easy to move out if we should so need to. There's 9 holes in there. It's 9 holes of golf. It's no different to actually any indoor mini golf course in London at the moment. They're all around about 1,400, 1,300 square foot for 9 holes. Unfortunately, we'd all like them to be bigger, but in London it's kind of difficult for but yeah, it's 9 holes of golf, and some are bits maybe abstract or concept and how you play mini golf, but they're all there.
So if you had 20 people going round there, I mean, would that be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you would have, imagine a space with 4 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 5 and 1 group in each corner, it's a lot of space considering the sort of square footage of the outdoor space comes in at about 120 square meters. So for 20 people to stand in 120 square meters is really not a great deal.
Right. I mean, obviously it's COVID time, so there are restrictions in that regard. But just trying to get a feel for it. Councillor Patrick, do you want to come back on this? Anything there?
Sorry, I did ask, and I'm sure I heard in the introduction there's a premises. Mr. Scott runs another premises in Hackney.
No, he's been at this site for 2 years, Councillor. He's got other sites in London.
Right. So he's been at this site for 2 years. I know it's not relevant, but he's been at this site for 2 years without planning permission. Okay.
So just to jump in on that, we've used it as our workshop for the majority of the time, and it was always planned to be a workshop, and we're going to use the yard for 10s to run the golf course come the summer months, and also to run a small bar, which we've done in the past. But we did lose a venue at the beginning of March due to the COVID pandemic, and we had to sort of regroup at the Railway Arch. And during the lockdown, we refitted, ran the 10s, and now we're at the position where we're trying to make that our permanent home and go through the proper routes to get the license and get the planning so that we can make 407 Menmore Terrace our Plonk Hackney home long term. So previous to this season, it was our workshop, and we did run a mini golf pop up there last summer in 2019.
Okay, Councillor Patrick, are you happy with that? Yep. So just to go back, so we're focusing there on the golf component of this venture in terms of numbers, and we're talking about 20 there now. Can we talk about the bar, because it's indicated on the plan that you've got 40? and indicated in the arcade section 25. Can we just clarify what's going on there?
Do you want to reply to that, Elliot?
Sure, I'll do that. So yeah, currently we have got seating around the bar and seating in the sort of cafe space, which would, in normal times, we'd like to handle 40 people. Currently we have just seating for 24 on tables and none at the bar, obviously due to the current restrictions.
Yeah.
And in the arcade we have a total of 15 machines, arcade machines, pinball machines. And so we envisage between 1 to 2 people on each of those machines at any one time. And although we have not ever had that many people in the property, obviously because of the current restrictions, we feel there is enough space for that. But I am, if a lower number is needed to show flexibility in the application, then I'm happy to discuss that.
Well, let's discuss it then. Let's have a chat about it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm quite concerned there's a lot of people. And there's a lot of drinking areas, and whatever the purposes are, there are a lot of drinking areas in this. I mean, right, for a mini golf. This seems more like a bar with mini golf than a mini golf with a bar.
So at the moment we've got 40 in the bar, 24 tables under the current situation, and we've got 20 in the mini golf area. So that makes kind of 60 if everything was back to normal. And then you've got your arcade area, or your little cafe area that you said. Do you know it as a cafe area or the arcade area?
I see it as the main area. I see the cafe being the seated area where people could eat. And that's currently got seating for 24, and then the arcade being with stools, but a more of a stood affair with the machines. Again, 20 to 25 people, and I think I'd happily go forward with concessions sat at something like 65 people to 70 if it was more amenable to the councillors. And
well, it's certainly better than 101.
It would be an improvement, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Do you agree, Councillor Patrick?
I do.
Okay, so should we just finalise a figure then for the arcade section? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, how many machines did you say you had again?
Currently we have, they change, but at the moment we have 13.
13. So if you had one person playing at every table, then, I don't know, a quarter of those with 2 people maybe. It's unusual for 2 to play a pinball machine at the same time, isn't it?
They are 2-player, but at exactly the same time, I would agree. And who knows? Yeah, I mean, we may find that machines will change, so some flexibility in that would be good. But I would say that yeah.
What would you say would be a reasonable number then?
15 to 20 in the arcade area, I would say.
Okay, so we say 17 then.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so I think we've sorted that one out. Okay, where are we then? So any more clarification points, Councillor Patrick, on this?
What CCTV do you have on the premises?
We've got. Oh, should I do it, Graham? We've currently got 8 cameras, high definition, full color, recording on a long hard drives, positioned as been shown to the police on their site inspection, and they were happy with the location of all the cameras currently.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, so let's move on to the next step, which is responsible authorities case. Mr. Chewett, please. Mr. Chewett.
Sorry, Chair, I just couldn't get off my mute for a sec there. Thank you very much, Chair. So my representation is on within the agenda on Appendix B1. So essentially, I just made reference to the proposed activities, and obviously this is when we first received the application. I was just a bit concerned about the potential for a negative impact on the promotion of the licensing objectives, in particular the prevention of public nuisance, and this was due to the nature of the premises and the surrounding area. It's obviously located directly opposite London Fields, which often suffers from nuisance and antisocial behaviour. I think this 2020 was particularly bad around London Fields. It's something we see often, and especially during the summer months. And I think the concern was that an additional premises in this area could further exacerbate those issues. In discussion with Mr. Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, we did discuss this at length. There's been a change to the application now, so the external area has been referred to conditions being placed on it to restrict the hours of use to 10 p.m. And just a small number of smokers outside.
Yeah, that's
thereafter.
LP6, isn't it?
Yeah,
LP6, yeah.
Yep, LP6. So the crazy golf, mini golf, etc. would cease by 10 p.m. and only smokers would be out there. So that was something I raised initially. I did make reference to planning. We've heard that planning will be sought. If you are minded to grant, the applicant would seek planning permission.
Yeah.
But I did explain to Mr. Hopkins earlier that I do still just have some concerns about this particular area, and I think we'll probably hear from the other persons in relation to that. But just this area around London Fields extending into Broadway Market, I think in recent years, I think it's fair to say, has seen an increase in the number of licensed premises, and that is a bit of a concern for us in licensing, and I know for local residents and for the police as well to a certain extent. But I'll leave it for there now, and we'll probably just get to the discussion phase once we've heard from the other persons.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stewart, for that. I'm very grateful. I'll say, okay, so we can move on to other persons, and I think we've got I've got Kevin Fleming, Louise Brewood, James Aparicio, sorry if I'm not pronouncing these properly, Fraser Brown, and there was someone else I noticed. Is it Elliot Scott?
That's the applicant.
Oh, that's the applicant. Okay, yeah, okay, brilliant. Sorry, Mr. Scott. Okay, so yeah, if we could start.
When they speak to say which they're
yeah, maybe start off with Mr. Fleming.
Hello, can you hear okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll try and keep myself brief. I'm going to leave for other people who are close to residents to talk about the level of nuisance. But
could you tell us which your objection is in the agenda?
C1.
C1, okay.
Okay, so there are now about 3 operating documents, all slightly contradictory, and so it's probably just worth trying to clarify some of what's going on with some of them. So the original application said customers must be seated to enjoy alcohol. I take it you've abandoned that clause of the application and you no longer want to stick to that one, because it now seems that people can be wandering around most of the building with alcohol. So before I can raise my objection, is that now the correct position, that it's now that you no longer have to be seated to enjoy alcohol?
Mr. Hopkins, do you want to come back on that quickly?
I'm confused.
Yes, that's why I didn't mention it in the presentation, Chair. It's not a condition that was offered or agreed with the police.
But you included it in the original application. It's now redundant, yeah?
I can't see it on the original application. If you could point it out to me, I did have a look.
Right in the big box there with the highlighter on it. Part 3 operating schedule. Customers must be seated to enjoy alcohol. It was a meaningless clause anyway. It should never have been included because it's not an enforceable clause. It doesn't say customers must be seated to purchase alcohol. You just put enjoy alcohol. It's utterly meaningless. It was a smokescreen.
Could you kindly point out which number it was on the
part 3 of your application, presumably the one that you wrote, Mr. Hopkins. Operating schedule.
Well, I've got part M, but I can't see it.
Okay, well, it's redundant. By the sounds of it, it's redundant. So, to continue.
I see it. It's in the big box.
Can't read, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the big box. It starts, please give a general description, and it's the last sentence.
Oh, I see. Yes.
It says customers must be seated to enjoy alcohol. It is there. I can see it now. It's above the cafe bar is ancillary to the golf course.
Yeah.
That's actually the description of the premises, councillor. It's not the operating schedule.
It says part 3 operating schedule.
Yeah. But you said customers must be seated to enjoy alcohol, as though that was meaning that they couldn't wander around the golf course with the alcohol.
They are allowed to drink outside. That's what we're asking for.
So that was that. Well, okay. I'm baffled why these random clauses were included. That's all. I'm looking the second part of the objection, and this is part of the misleading nature of this application. You talk about there being 20 seat covers outside, but as you look at the photograph that I've included in C1, there's clearly no covers, nor is there space for covers outside. As Councillor Smith has already shown, there's a very limited amount of space outside for a golf course. There's no additional space for covers outside. If you put covers outside as well as golf course, you have no space for 20 people. This is such a misleading application in terms of claiming that there's both golf course and covers outside. There isn't both outside. It's a very small golf course outside. Now, the applicant is suggesting that from 10 o'clock there will be no golf outside, but the applicant is also suggesting that you can only drink when you're playing golf. And this is logical absurdity, because if I can no longer play golf outside from 10 o'clock, then clearly I cannot purchase alcohol from 10 o'clock because I can no longer be playing golf. Therefore, unless I'm one of the people in the arcade, which is limited to 20 people or 17 people, I think we're down to, from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, only 17 people can purchase alcohol, because there can clearly be no more golf playing going on, unless for some reason you're suggesting that you can carry on playing golf, or unless you can carry on playing alcohol even though you can no longer play golf. So there's a number of things going on which make this a deeply uncomfortable application. Not just the planning application, which is the fact that it's not a license for these purposes. We've now got some additional things in the dispersal plan, which was never in the original application. It seems to be operating as a takeaway food outlet, which is suggesting there's going to be Uber Eats and other food distribution services distributing food from the premises as well. Everyone's frozen, I think. A lot of people seem to have frozen. Can I just check that, Councillor Smith? I can still see Councillor
I can still hear you, yes.
Is it okay?
We can hear you.
Thank you. So we have...
Mr. Scott is trying to get in.
No, I think he's frozen. I think he's got...
No, he's not frozen.
So yeah, I just wanted to bring up to you, Mr. Fleming. So basically, the 20 covers was the same people playing golf. That's the same 20 people to be outside, and we have 20 stalls to go around 5 barrels that are in the yard. So
are those the fireproof barrels that Mr. Hopkins made? Because he said everything outside was fireproof.
Yeah, everything's been fireproof. So I come from history of set design and theatre, so I have sleepless nights if things aren't fireproof. Everything is absolutely treated and properly got used for public spaces. But yeah, so the outside space for 20 covers is the 20 golfers at any one time. There are 20 stalls. Our logic was that no one can play golf and drink at the same time, so the drinks would be with the covers and the stalls, so that if there was an issue with they would
when you say you have sleepless nights without fire, I notice that the fire exit, recently I was outside the premises, and the fire exit was blocked at that time by some of those stools. Is that part of how a safe premise would run? Because this is when there's customers on site, and that's the fire exit, and it's blocked by stools at this time. And is all the plastic trimming fireproof? I accept, and I'm sure Mr. Hopkins will come in on this, but I'm aware that I'm aware that Fire Brigade hasn't made representation. I suggest that Fire Brigade hasn't visited the site, because there's so many breaches of fire code here, from the fire exit being blocked, the plastic foliage hanging up, the large hanging items above the bar. Why? I mean, the fire exit's routinely blocked. Every time I've been past the fire exit,
there's a new door there as well. So there's now 2 doors at that end. So that fire door is open, and there's another door. But
the fire exit shouldn't be blocked, should it? What I'm suggesting is that there's a number of problems. What I'm suggesting is that there's a number of problems.
This is turning into a dialogue and almost a row between Mr. Scott and Mr. Fleming. This isn't how we conduct a licensing hearing.
I was about to call it in. So
thank you, sir. I will.
Okay. So my key objections.
1 second. Let's reestablish some order.
Could we ask from Amanda? Sorry, what actually we can consider as under the licensing objectives, whether any of the fire regulations? I don't think they come under the licensing regulations. Just so we're clear on what we can consider
the fire authority.
Evidence.
I have confirmed no representation on this application.
Yeah, we can only consider representations that have been made.
Okay, this
so unless it's actually, if it's been made, if a representation has been made, we do have to consider it.
Yeah, no, so I don't mean that. I meant, sorry. Mr. Fleming's talking about fire safety, and I just wonder, since we have no representation from the fire brigade, Mr. Fleming is bringing up issues of fire safety. Is that something when we get to doing our decision, we need to take into account, or is that something that we shouldn't be taking into account?
So, like the capacity, you would only consider fire safety in respect of capacity when you're assessing, because often it's the fire safety assessment that determines the capacity for the premises. So that's only when we normally would consider that. But it's literally more of a general overview of fire safety, not the detailed regulation. So I'm not sure, but I can only assume that Mr. Fleming is maybe trying to just raise issues which have not been clarified previously. I don't know.
I just wanted to be clear what we take.
I'm raising the issue of public safety in the grounds that you've got a courtyard which originally had 36 people and now has 20 people who are drinking alcohol, where there's a number of ground level obstructions which represent trip hazards, which represent a fire exit route next to a door which is partially obstructed. So my first level of concern is around public safety. My second level of concern, and one that Mr. Brown will talk to, is level of noise nuisance. You have a non-sound insulated premises with a number of people outside. The third is the idea that from a licensing point of view, we've been told, and this is the incongruities within the licensing application, we've been told that people will not be allowed to drink unless they're playing golf, but we've also been told that they must stop playing golf at 10 o'clock, but they can remain carrying on drinking and purchasing alcohol till 11 o'clock. And that's a logical absurdity in the nature of the application, because if I can no longer play golf from 10 o'clock, I shouldn't be able to buy alcohol from after 10 o'clock. We're concerned at the level of noise nuisance from the property, the number of people outside, because it isn't an eating area outside, is going to contribute to the local disturbance. And I'm also concerned, given that there's been a lot of representations made about the history of the area. The same property during the period before, when it was running temporary licenses, was offering promotions which included free beer with a game of golf and was hanging signs outside to that effect. And we've also got, I think I heard Mr. Hopkins say that there was that they hadn't been charging corkage, though if you look on Plonk's website, they were charging corkage. And so I'm a little bit confused about the idea that there was no corkage being charged as well, because according to their website, they were charging, encouraging people to bring up to 700 mils of spirits, and were charging £20 corkage for a mocktail jug to mix that with. So I feel I'm being misled by the application. Misrepresentation is taking place here, and that leaves me very, very uncomfortable that going forward, this is an operator who is going to listen to local residents, reduce noise nuisance, make sure that they are working responsibly, because from the unauthorized signage and hoardings being hung on railings, from the issues around bring your own bottle and the misleading representation I've heard this evening, from the fact that I shouldn't be buying alcohol once the golf course is closed, but I clearly can. Theoretically, once the golf course is closed, only the 17 people who are in the arcade should be able to buy alcohol, and that should be the only people who are authorized to buy it. And I'm concerned at this point that they seem to be adding on a takeaway restaurant, which includes Uber drivers in cars turning up till 11 o'clock in an area which is primarily used by cyclists as a cycle route to and from Hackney Mare Street. So there's a number of concerns, none of which seem to be addressed in the application. I'm further concerned that while background music is all that's being proposed, it's unclear from the application whether there's any sound limiter going to be applied to that. The immediate premises are right literally next door. There is no separation. There is no distance between the nearest premises. And so noise from the courtyard and noise from the venue will travel to those. So we've got noise nuisance. We've got a very, very significant issue in terms of the lack of clarity about the number of people who may be drinking in the premises at any one time. And we have some significant issues about takeaway. I have to say that there's so many different between the dispersal policy, the original application, and the additional submission to the police. There's so many contradictory elements to this application. It becomes very hard to be clear what the final plan is. Is it you can only drink when you're playing golf? You can carry on drinking for an hour after you finish playing golf. You don't have to be seated. You do have to be seated. You can play in the arcade and have a drink. There seems to be, according to the plan, only a single toilet. I'm not sure if there's one toilet and that's used by all 70 people. It's really unclear from the diagram. So there's a number of things that I think are confusing and misleading about this. And I really hope, on the basis of what's been presented so far, that the committee reject it outright rather than adding conditions and require them to bring back a properly thought out submission, if at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fleming, for that. If we could move on to is it Louise Brewood? Louise?
Sorry, hi,
Sorry
Louise
if I didn't
Brewood
get
here.
your surname correct there. Is it Brewood?
Sorry, it's Brewood.
Brewood, sorry.
Yeah, Brewood. Sorry, my apologies. To be fair, I can only actually echo everything that Kevin has actually said, so that I don't take up so much time, and fully support everything that he said, because that is a lot of the objections that I was bringing. But I'd also like to add that I personally have not only witnessed firsthand, but have received many concerned complaints from local residents, as with my chair of London Fields Safer Neighbourhood panel. And this particularly was particularly prevalent over the summer, as I'm sure you're aware of what Kevin has said. And I believe that sorry, I've been need a drink. Sorry, apologies. And I believe the cumulative effect of an additional licensed premises in the area will only contribute significantly to antisocial behaviour, noise nuisance, urination, simply by the nature of the volume of people coming and going. And this is already caused by a number of bars in the area, and the subject of enforcement action and the lack of enforceable conditions in licences has been the main cause to issues in the area. This has been echoed by the police, who also that attend all our meetings regularly, our local police, that one of the problems they have is actually being able to support and help residents and deal with crime and antisocial behaviour because of the lack of conditions that are added. But given the confusion over everything that's been presented tonight around this licence, for me personally, I feel that it's not something that needs to go ahead at this point. We was not aware of takeaways. We're worried about dispersal outside, and the impact in the area, as all of you have seen, even yesterday and over the weekend in the news, of what goes on. We do need to now, at the very least, add strict conditions to licensing to actually make the quality of life for residents of a bearable nature, and to also maintain health and safety and fire risks and all the other issues that go with that. I'm going to leave it there because Kevin actually put everything across so well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. That's great. Okay, let's move on to the next person, which is, I think, is it James Aparicio? No, James. He's listed on my. Any other persons there objecting or supporting this? Fraser Brown, is he there? No.
Yes, hiya.
Fraser.
Hi there. How are you doing? I'm a resident on Martello Street, just down the road, and I guess I would echo what Louise and Kevin have pointed out. I'm not sure that I'm a lay person when it comes to this, so it's difficult for me to go through the nuts and bolts of the application and the regulation and the planning and all that sort of stuff. But I wanted to add an anecdotal input from someone who lives here, that when we moved here 5 years or so ago, it was a really quiet little neck of the park, and the area, and it just feels like, at what point are there enough pubs and places to get a drink in one sort of 50 square meter bit? Pub in the park, which obviously doesn't relate to this gentleman's application and shouldn't, I guess, influence it, but it's ever expanding the noise coming from that place with everyone now, hundreds of people outside every day, every night, 7 days a week, is really difficult to live next to. Where when we first got here, it wasn't an issue. It was just a local pub, and now it's a destination, sort of place to go and get pissed. And I'm really concerned that just across the road, there's going to be another place that just adds noise, adds people, adds, it's just, it's so close to a kids' play park. It's so close to just people's houses. It's not a Shoreditch, it's not Camden High Street. It's not Shoreditch High Street. It's not, it's just, isn't it? It should be, I think, why we moved here, like a residential area, and it's just ever more becoming less that. So I find it difficult, and I'm not really in a position to comment on the particulars of the application. It might come to numbers of covers and dispersal notices and all that sort of stuff. But I'm genuinely concerned about the long-term impact about granting licenses to more premises. We had the other tap room just opened up around the corner, Three Sods, just recently, in a sort of 50 square meter radius. I'm not sure that we need another licensed premises. Just don't think it's the right use of that space, if I'm perfectly honest.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move into the kind of the discussion phase here. Councillor Patrick, you've been listening to some of these objections. Do you want to come in?
Sorry, I'd like to, go back to the bring your own, because I've just been on the website, Plunk's website, while we've been talking, just to basically see what the venue is. And Mr. Fleming is right. There is a corkage for cocktails. I don't know what happens if people bring in other drinks. It's quite a steep corkage. For a jug of cocktails, it's £20, and for glass, it's £5, according to their website. So I just wondered we were told there hasn't been any corkage, and whether that's something that is against the law or not, I don't know. But it's certainly on their website. Mocktail glass is £6 corkage, mocktail jug. But anyway, I am concerned. I mean, I was supposed to the residents. This premises has been open throughout the summer, and I wondered what the experience has been throughout the summer, whether you have noticed increased antisocial behaviour coming from it, or what. I mean, I know there's lots of premises in the vicinity, and there's been problems with London Fields Park, which we've tried to deal with as a council. But if you could tell me about about this particular premises that has been operating through Thames and operating as a mini golf course.
Hi there. I guess that's I'm the local resident. It's quite it's difficult to tell, right? Because without having a sophisticated way of monitoring where people are coming from. I mean, I have not spoken to the premises specifically related to any particular noise. We quite often hear like cheering, and if people get a loop-de-loop or whatever, I guess there's going to be like if you got groups of people drinking and then something good happens and they're outside, there's going to be cheering, right? There's going to be sort of that kind of general hubbub, And again, I think it has to all be in consideration with you've got a significant number of people out, or whatever the number might be of people out making noise and doing things there. In addition to what's only 20 meters away, that whole wall of noise comes down this way and echoes down the railway arches into the back of houses and all that sort of bit. It doesn't, it's not soft area, right? So noise really echoes. So I don't know if I can attribute particular increase in ASB or sort of horrible behaviour in the park over summer and over recent weeks, just to that place, it's cumulative. It's cumulative effect. It's and it's like filling a bath. At some point it spills over, going. So it's difficult to know how it's been operating over the summer was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of this area, or not, or whether it would be one more place or two more places. But at some point, it feels like it has to stop.
I wonder if the applicant, Mr. Scott, could come back on some of the points that were raised by Mr. Fleming, especially around when drinks are going to be served, who they're going to be served to, what the issue is. If it is written, I've seen it twice written in the documentation that people have to be seated. It's there twice to have a drink. Now we're talking about people being allowed to wander around the golf course with drinks. You say people will put them down. Maybe they will put them down with this, or maybe they will have them in one hand. I don't know. But also, what's going to happen after 10 o'clock? Perhaps you can. I know the Uber Eats isn't part of the license, but obviously it's all part of the cumulative effect of noise and antisocial behaviour, which is going to affect the local residents. But perhaps you could clarify what's going to happen after 10 o'clock and exactly how many people is the maximum people you're going to have in the premises, because I think there's lots of confusion over that. It's either Mr. Scott or he's solicitor. I forgot your name. Sorry.
I'm happy to speak. It's
Mr. Hopkins.
So I guess just address a few things which we can just explain. So the police put their statement in saying as long as people are using the golf, the arcade, or the gaming facilities, which meant they implied also the board games in the cafe area. So anyone who would be seated in the cafe area or in the arcade or on the golf would be able to drink, not just golfers. So that's in regards to the general consumption of alcohol and the times of people who do it and how they were doing it. So the golf would finish and the yard would be closed at 10 o'clock, but those inside still playing board games or in the arcade would still be permitted to drink. In regards to Deliveroo, if this is a serious objection, it's not something that makes us a great deal of money. It's not our core business. I'm happy to just not do it up until 11 o'clock and also stop orders at 10 o'clock. We're doing it at the moment and putting this application due to the current situation, the restrictions on businesses, and we're doing it to try and keep money coming in during this period and for the foreseeable future. But it doesn't have to go until 11 o'clock. If it makes a difference, I'm happy to offer till 10 p.m. That is when we will see the bulk of our sales finish anyway. So that's another point. In regards to the the comments about seating and standing and taking drinks around the venue, people would have to. There are seats at every arcade machine, and I have made sure there's space around the holes for a barrel and stool, so people can be seated. If this is a point of contention, I would obviously much rather the simplicity of the license for the sake of operations and for sake of transparency, that if people are in the garden playing golf, i.e. with golf clubs in hand, not just sort of sat around, then they would be able to drink seated or not. But I am also happy to make provision of seating for the 20 covers, as stated earlier, for the 20 golfers playing on the golf course. In regards to the earlier comments with fire safety and what have you, and space for those covers and space for those seats, there is space. One of the main reasons why we moved the gate recently was to create an easier form of access from the property for better vision on the gate for the sake of public safety and for CCTV for the licensing teams and for the police. And there is ample space for people to come and go through the fire exit and the new door in the glazed part of the railway arch, which would also be on a closer. In regards to sound, I absolutely appreciate what all the neighbours are saying. We absolutely want to make sure that we fit inside the landscape of London Fields as a good small local business, not something which is seen as a detriment to the neighbourhood. We form our entire business model around being a local business, and that's extremely crucial to us, that we don't upset any of the local neighbours or any of the local residents. So if, as I said, I am putting in further dampening and softening aspects to the interior space, because railway arches can be echoey, but we feel that we've dampened a lot of the sound with our current installs of softs. In regards to the actual the sense that people are walking around the venue with drinks, there will be times where people will transition between different areas, between they're finishing their round of golf and going to the cafe and sitting down, if a table is there available for them, or going to the arcade. But the majority of their time, the majority of their stay at our venue is always with whilst playing a game. This is also where we see the majority of our revenue and our profits. From that, we need to sell drinks to sort of top that up to really survive. It's a very expensive property for us, and the rates are quite high. So come next year, it's going to be imperative for us to be able to have these ancillary sales along with our golf tickets and tokens to the arcade. Councillor, you mentioned before that why couldn't someone just come in and spend 10 pence and have a drink? We have a minimum product cost to buy tokens to the arcade. We have a minimum higher price to play on the board games, and the same for the golf. This is to act as a barrier to stop people doing, just as you say, coming in and having a drink and staying for prolonged periods of time.
So could you explain that? How much?
Sure. So it's
Sorry.
£5.50 for 10 tokens for the arcade.
Right.
So it works, and then it's £5 for a player to rent a board game, and for per person. This is something which we charge, and we don't always charge to people, to be honest. But if we need to create that extra barrier as a business, we're happy to do that. If that helps to stipulate that people don't just come in and sit down and have a drink, and we put a deck of cards in front of them. We are happy to put a table service charge on. Other board game cafes across the country already operate on this basis of charging a charge to use those gaming facilities, and that extra charge is the value of a drink. And so I feel would be a fair barrier to stop people just coming in and just to pop in for a beer and just being another watering spot. So those are the three, and then the golf as well, of course, which is different price for child and adults, currently set at 7 and 4 for off-peak times. And in the evenings, we have, again, a higher price, as our Mr. Hopkins has mentioned, for two reasons. One, to generate revenue, and two, to make sure the same thing happens. We have people who come not to just drink. We are a games venue. The atmosphere we're trying to create is of that ilk, not that of a stand-up bar with shoulder-to-shoulder drinking. So yeah, I hope. Was there any other points that you wish for me to clarify?
Could you perhaps you say you run other golf courses? Perhaps you could tell us about how you run them and where they are, and
Sure.
Are they run similar to this one that you're proposing, or yeah?
Sure. The venue we currently have open in South London and Peckham is a fully licensed establishment. So it's a bar, which we have a golf course in, and other games. We have selling drinks there with no problems and no complaints or incidences. Our venue in the Horniman Museum in South London is merely a mini golf course set inside the grounds of a heritage museum. So it's merely pay and play. It's very much a family and kids focused venue with no drinks for sale or seating area. And then our venue in Camden Market is a mini golf course, and that alone, where people pay to play. They're welcome to bring their own drinks, and there's no bar currently at that site. So the closest comparison would be our Peckham venue, which is fully licensed and has the same offering of arcade, board games, and golf. I must say, we've been operating the borough for 5 years now, often working alongside partner venues, not in our own venue, in pop-ups or partnerships, events. Tens and tens of thousands of players, not a single fight, not a single incident, not a single report to the police, not a single issue with any of our customers. The majority of our peak hours are during the day. We tend to find that come closing time, there's no one else to kick out. Our peak hours historically are between 3 to 8 p.m. when people have finished lunch, looking for an afternoon activity, and often going on to other things. So we don't feel that it's going to be in any way a major problem with dispersing customers late at night. And also, our customer base it tends not to drink so heavily because they are distracted with other activities on the property. So again, it's we found that our core hours are during the day between 3 to 8 p.m. And that's what we anticipate would be the busiest times for business.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott, can I just quickly chip in with a question here? In one of the photographs in the pack, it's looking at the golf course. To the right-hand side, there's a little house. The wall is adjacent to the golf area.
Yes.
Is that a residential house there?
Yes, it is.
And what's the relationship like with them?
I've had no complaints. When I first moved in and took the property on in 2019, I introduced myself and explained what we were planning to do, and the resident said that it would be a benefit rather than having the yard that was previous there and the light industrial works. It wasn't then that we were planning to open this as a full-time venue. We did always plan to run temporary events notices and have a golf course in the yard. But now with the change in situations, we found ourselves, wanting to develop the property further. But as I said, we haven't received any direct complaints, nor do we believe the council or the police have so far for the past year and a half.
In the picture, I can see like an awning that comes off the wall. Is that a doorway?
No. Oh, sorry, let me find the picture.
There's a picture here. You can see the picture. There's like a little awning that comes off the side of the wall. You see it?
Yes, I see that. That's attached to the trellis thing. It's just, it's not a doorway. No, it's just a bit of decoration.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Doorways from that side of the property to the course side.
I'd like to invite anyone else who wants to come in, really. Mr. Fleming, you've probably got something to say.
Thank you. Can I clarify, one of the signs that you had hanging out advertised the site for private hire for parties. Is that something you're still intending to offer, or is that something that you've withdrawn?
That's something that in the future we would like to offer, to be honest, but we don't expect it to be something which will be at all a lead thing. That was something we used to have when we had corporate interest, which there is absolutely none of now. And with this location, we don't anticipate it. We do offer it for birthday parties for kids, but this is down the line, not now with COVID and everything, of course.
But going forward, it would be something that you might have. So you might have full capacity because you've had it booked for
I see
a corporate event for the whole duration, theoretically.
Yes, there is a potential for that in the future. I won't say to you that we wouldn't look to it, but I would also say that it's in the short to long term, I don't see that being a thing. But yeah, it is something that we would like to offer to try and make full use of the business. Yeah.
And the other one, I think I just want to flag up, going back to the issue around that it was light industrial. It was a distribution centre for spring water. So it's currently being used for these purposes and also for takeaway food. And I'm just concerned again that there's been this kind of riding roughshod over the planning process because it's not licensed as a takeaway food distribution outlet. And it goes back to this, and I know it's not the role of the licensing committee, but it goes back to the principle that a building is a site is being used firstly as a takeaway food outlet. I don't know how long Mr. Scott's been waiting for the council to. I checked to see if they've got their scores on the door rating and had their hygiene assessment. I gather you're still waiting for that. But at the moment, it's operating in a premises which isn't licensed for food distribution, operating food distribution, in a premises that isn't licensed for sale of alcohol, operating for sale of alcohol. It's it almost makes a mockery of the idea that we have premises licensing provision going on. There's the additional issues that I've already raised. So I'm concerned about those two bits. The other bit is I would like to clarify, because it's not clear from the plan, what's the toileting capacity? Because we've got this position where people are going to leave at 10 o'clock because they can no longer play golf, and we can't have everyone who's playing golf going into the building because you'll exceed your capacity. So there's going to be people leaving, and I'm one of the problems that we had, and we've had this discussion. I had this discussion with Mr. Hopkins last time around the idea that when we've got people leaving, they don't want to queue for toilets, and then they don't queue for toilets, so they leave and they urinate in the park or they urinate under the railway bridge. So I'm curious to know what the capacity of the toilets is, because at the moment I can see one disabled loo and one other, and I presume the staff loo is, and I want to know what the capacity for the 70, 80 people on site is, including staff, please.
Okay, sure. Just a few of the points there. As a B1, B8 light industrial, we do have the right to cook food and use it for delivery. It does come in the planning permission for that. It obviously is not our core business there, and currently we're doing it just to try and bring some capital in. But when it comes to usage, I do believe we are still in the right category for that takeaway usage. And if it is a massive sticking point for the locals, with the delivery drivers at the back door, although I mean I appreciate there's so many arches there, such as used by the likes of Wagamama, Rosa's Thai Kitchen, all with the same planning usage with delivery drivers and permissions. We have put in and informed the council for several months now. We are there and we're trading to be inspected, and we are waiting for that inspection. But we have registered our location, and we have been clear to the council in regards to that. I just wanted to get back to this point, Mr. Fleming, one last time, because I think it's getting confused. We're applying for a license on the basis that people can buy drinks if they're playing golf in the arcade or in the cafe playing board games, which means that people will be able to drink until 11 o'clock, not in the yards, not on the golf course, but they would be able to consume alcohol at tables whilst playing games or at stalls whilst on the arcade machines. So I don't apologise if that's unclear. It might have been unclear from the way that it was.
I think the wording arcade, mini golf, and so the wording in the agreement with the police, where it says all sales of alcohol shall only be to those who are using the mini golf and arcade/gaming facilities. Arcade/gaming facilities doesn't to me suggest some people playing Monopoly.
That's what.
So so the idea that you can now have some people who are playing a board game it means that basically anyone in the building can purchase alcohol. So it's to my mind, it's a fairly meaningless clause, because and it's also I fear, and I need legal clarification on this, I fear it's unenforceable, because if you've got a group of 4 people, 3 of whom are playing Monopoly and 1 of whom is sitting there, I don't think it's enforceable that you can say, you're not playing Monopoly, I can't serve you alcohol. And I'd like some clarification on that one from a legal point of view.
Amanda, do you want to come in on that, or maybe Mr. Stewart?
I'll let Mr. Stewart go first, and then I'll.
Okay, because the condition is number 16, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Which is agreed with the police. So all sales of alcohol, it would be to sell to whoever the person is. So I guess, if councillors, if you're minded to grant this application, the way we would test that condition as officers would be to attempt to enter the premises and purchase alcohol, make it clear that we're not intending to play any games, whether it be golf or arcade or gaming. That's how we would test that condition if you were minded to grant this license.
I would make a suggestion that maybe we should separate out the different activities and make it clear the times. Would that be helpful? The times of when alcohol can be served.
Yep, I think it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it all together, I think that I can see there is room for doubt and uncertainty. Whereas we're not having that condition. It's just sort of separating out the different activities so that it is quite clear to everybody what they can and can't do. I don't know if that's making more conditions than are necessary, but that might be a way forward.
So what would you suggest, Amanda? Have we got
So I just chip in here with the numbers. We have been given an offer of a reduction in numbers. So the current numbers are 20 in the golf area, 30 down from 40 in the bar seated area, and 17 in the arcade / cafe area, and that totals 67 altogether. If you take out the 20,
you've never got a bar in the arcade.
No, I'm referring to the plan here.
Right.
So the plan's it's got mini golf, the seated area, and the arcade area basically on the plan, which I think is also the cafe area, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the arcade's not in and the cafe area are basically the same area.
Chair, could I come back on that for a moment as well?
Yes, please. I think we need to simplify this. Everyone's getting rather confused.
Yeah. Chair, my understanding of the condition agreed, as Mr. Jewett has said, the condition agreed with the police was that sale of alcohol can take place to those using or basically have used those facilities. As Mr. Scott said, it doesn't mean they've got to stop at 10 o'clock. If they've used the golf course, they're there for that 2-3 hour period. But maybe if you've got the capacity now, I think Mr. Scott's happy with that, 17 in the arcade, 20 outside and 30 in the cafe.
Yeah.
As you say, 67. I think we could. He's agreed that I would be happy with that. They're not going to be drinking outside after 10, clearly, because the terrace is closed. We've agreed that framework hours. So if the people have been playing golf, or they have been playing in the arcade, which would include the board games anyway, that's what the arcade's for, or they've stopped, I don't see it would be unreasonable under the condition agreed with the police for them to carry on, as Mr. Scott says, till 11 and cease then, because they will have, the primary purpose is they will have been to the venue to play golf or to use the arcade. I think the predominant thing is going to be using the golf course. They will then progress inside and use the arcade.
Let them finish, Mr. Flemish. Let them finish.
That would be our submission to you. I think that it's that they have used the facilities. If it says using, it doesn't mean you've got to be like a restaurant. As soon as you stopped your food, you'd have to leave. That clearly would be ridiculous. They will have used the golf course or be using or have used the arcade and gaming facilities. And the police wording does say arcade/gaming facilities. So my suggestion would be that if they've used it and they're just finishing off their evening, they've gone inside, then they would be entitled to have a drink, because the primary purpose was to go and use the golf or the arcade.
Okay, Mr. Flem.
I'm going back to what Louise said. One of the problems that the police have repeatedly encountered is loose wording in license applications leaves them unenforceable. And this is where the precision in language is so important. Are using the mini golf or arcade is present tense. It's enforceable at that point. Having used the golf course 3 hours ago is what Mr. Hopkins is suggesting. I'm still entitled to drink, because that's past tense. That's not what that wording says, and that clarity is really important. And Mr. Jewett makes such an important point. If I come in with a group of 6 people, one of whom pays for golf, according to the wording, that one person can buy rounds of drinks for the rest of the evening for other 6 people. Because as long as the person who is buying the drinks has played golf 3 hours ago, the time scale Mr. Hopkins suggests is unimportant, because the past tense applies. And Mr. Jewett highlights that it means that anyone who has played golf can then continue buying drinks. And in which case it's a mockery. It's meaningless. It's unenforceable. And if we're trying to build in clauses that allow for enforcement, wording 16 is unenforceable based on Mr. Hopkins' insistence that it's retrospectively applied in the past tense, and Mr. Jewett's advice that the person who's buying alcohol can then buy 6 pints and give them to anyone, or 6 cocktails and give them to anyone else, whether they're playing golf on the arcade, cribbage, or not. And that leaves it unenforceable, and that is exactly the problem that is affecting all the bars in the area, is that lack of enforceable powers. And that's why this wording is so important and so problematic from my point of view.
I think if the applicant is minded to do this, to maybe think about how we can tighten that up.
Sure. Yeah, let's just say if they're not in the present playing a game on the golf or playing a board game, they shouldn't be drinking. I'm happy to lose the idea that they have just played or previously played. We won't be giving out our tables without a surcharge per person. The golf, everyone has to play. They can't watch their friends play. That's our company policy. And the arcades, we would be selling tokens to groups. We don't want to be too difficult with consumers, but we can find ways to make sure that everyone has paid to play, basically. That everyone has either bought tokens or they've paid for their table time. Our board games aren't just a couple of monopolies in the corner. We've got over 100 games worth over £4,000. Some games over £100. These games are things which I could feasibly rent out for £10 per person. It'd be a fair rate. So to charge somebody a fiver to play it, I think is fair, and is also again creates that added barrier. So I'm happy to add those ancillary charges onto the tables to show everybody sees who they're paying. My customers will pay it. This is not a problem. It's standard in the industry for people to pay it. I'm happy to charge more, obviously. So I'm happy to have those stipulations that if a licensing officer was to come in, wanted to check our license, they could check that everybody that is in the place is gaming as best as they can, judge, and that we will make it our responsibility to charge people therefore for the games. Not every local person will want to come back for the golf 2, 3, 4 times. We do have local people coming back to play the same board game 2, 3, 4 times. Couples who come just to play on the pinball and will chuck 30, 40 pounds at the pinball machines and happily play. We're not looking to have customers who don't game. So if that helps in any way to make it more enforceable, absolutely. Again, happy to work with whatever makes sense for everybody. And if it involves me charging people more money, I'll be honest, I don't have a problem with that either. So
okay, can I just ask Amanda, is it acceptable for me to ask for wording from an objector?
Well, I think that we'd probably, are we looking to amend condition 16 then?
I think so. It looks like that. Councillor Patrick, do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'd have to obviously liaise with the applicant's representative to make sure they were happy with it, and then also we'd need to notify the police. I think if of what the proposed changes are, to make it clearer.
Can I just bring in Mr. Fleming very quickly?
He can put forward suggestions, but whether or not we, will be at the
of course.
Panel's decision whether or not they accept what he's proposing.
I'd just like to give him the opportunity to put down some words.
Yes, so that's fair enough. Yes, that's fair enough.
I can't do that because my fundamentally I'm objecting to the application as it is. I think there's other issues outstanding, which are the noise from the courtyard in the evening from people playing outside, and the noise for nuisance for neighbours.
Up till 10 o'clock.
Sorry,
we're going to shut it at 10.
Yeah, but that for a kid who sleeps next door, that's still a noise issue, and I'm still concerned about the cumulative impact of noise, both from the pub on the park and this. So
okay, that's fine. That's fine.
So
I thought I'd just give you the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity, Councillor, but no.
Okay. Anyone else want to come in this discussion?
I'm still interested in the toilet issue because that's not been clarified.
Okay, maybe let's clarify that then.
Yeah, sure. There's 2 toilets. There's a disabled toilet, and we put an extra toilet, which is the men's toilet with the urinal, to make sure for quick use of that toilet. Our business was urinated and defecated on for all of lockdown. I spent tireless time cleaning up the people who did this all over our business whilst I was forced to remain closed and couldn't make a living. I absolutely understand Mr. Fleming's issues with the toilets. Hence why we went to the extra level of investing in having the extra toilet put in and the urinal put in. So I do appreciate his concerns on that one. I hope that what we've done in regards to those additional facilities will remedy any issues. I haven't, since the lockdown, I must say, as I am there every day, I haven't personally seen anybody, since lockdown was lifted, I haven't seen anybody urinating on either my business or the hot pod yoga or the metal workshop next door since, places were open for people past the park. And I don't think that it's fair to say there'll be an ongoing issue with us in regards to toilets.
Okay, great. Anybody else want to come back in? Mr. Hopkins, did you want to come back in, or did I miss that one on the chat?
I think you did, but I think that's been covered. Could I just ask for 2 minutes so I can ring Mr. Scott and confirm a couple of points with him?
Okay, let's have an adjournment for 2 minutes then. Is that okay? Is that acceptable to everyone?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, 2 minute adjournment.
Thank
you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just come back to you on that.
Yeah. Right.
You're sharing it, so you've got the phone. If someone's napping on, you can tell them to not shut up.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Chair, I was just going to respond, if I may, to what I've just discussed with Mr. Scott. He's quite happy about we've agreed the terrace closing at 10, but he certainly wouldn't want to close the bar at 10. So that would not be something he wanted to do, and he would want it where people have been playing golf or playing the arcade, they could still have a drink till 11. So he is still applying for the 11 o'clock license, but with the terrace closed at 10, and the new capacity that you've mentioned yourself, we're happy with that.
Okay, great.
Hi, can I come in, please?
Of course you can.
I've just got a couple of quick things. One a couple of things that concern me is, given that the overall capacity is 67, and the large numbers that we see in the summer months, and as you know, at the moment, any hot day brings out large numbers. I'm concerned that if you've got people inside the premises, 67, playing, doing golf, etc., how will you manage the large volumes that queue outside, which we saw at your premises in the summer, and the effects and impact and noise that possibly will have? And that rolls into the fact that if you're having people come in and they are paying, in effect, to use gaming equipment of some sort, or play equipment really of some sort, and then they're allowed to drink, but they can stay for after that, surely that will mean that people will come and drink all of the time once they've played their initial game, which will mean that people will drink a lot. I'm sure that you have experience that it's not like that, but as you said before with your other premises that they're not out, most of them aren't alcohol serving, and they're not in a high volume area that attracts a lot of I don't know, sports bar type people that are behaving very badly. And as I said, I have personally witnessed this. That's the first question. The second question is, could you clarify for me which door you are using for the takeaways? Because I wasn't sure if you were saying that you were using the back door, which goes out onto where all the residential area is with the Uber Eats, and that would also have an even further noise impact on local residents. Yeah, sorry, that's it. Sorry, yeah, because the others got answered. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Should I go through?
I'll answer the point on the takeaway. I need to make it plain, Chair, that we're talking about takeaways and the occasional Deliveroo until 11 o'clock. It is not licensable, so not relevant to this discussion. Anything to do with hot food is outside the remit of the panel. We're not asking for late night takeaway.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
That's
I realise that.
Right. I'll let Mr. Scott have his views on that, and maybe I could interject.
Absolutely. Just one more point in regards to the takeaway food stuff. If it makes Mr. Fleming, Mr. Brown, and I'm sorry, my Breward happy to have any takeaways that come out of the future from the park side, not the Mentmore Terrace side. This is not a problem at all. But again, happy to make that amendment starting tomorrow. In regards to the queues of people, we are definitely a business that would see its busiest times in the summer months, and I would say that we did at times have busy moments, and we did have to make sure that people stayed outside to manage social distancing, and we have asked people in the park to disperse in the past, disperse to the park, take 15 minutes away from the residents and our premises and come back, or pop to another local business and come back. So those are ways that we can try and mitigate crowds if that was to happen, which it may have happened in the summer. I didn't see it myself personally, but if you say so it did, I'll take your word for it. And in regards to that happening in the future, we've already cut down our tickets massively to make sure there is no overcrowding, and we would recommend people don't wait outside. Recommend they maybe take a drink in the pub next door, maybe take a walk to Broadway Market, or go around the park. If this is a policy that you'd like us to have written up, I'm happy to do so and make sure it's done and achieved by the staff. And in regards to, sorry, what was your other point, Ms. Brewood? Sorry, I missed the middle point.
I've forgotten. Sorry.
It was to do with, I think, people just drinking the sort of sports bar attitude.
Oh yes, it was the length of time. I mean, I am concerned that it could just become people turn up early, especially in the summer months when you have volumes, and they get in there and then they just don't leave. I mean, that's the hardest part, and it then becomes just a bar.
Right, I totally understand
inside
that.
and out. I mean, the outside 10 o'clock still worries me very much because of the fallout and the moving away, and the drinking outside, health and safety and fire risk, etc. They all still bother me, but the concern there is just that.
Okay. At the moment, we have a policy of 2 hours for customers, as we do have other bookings coming. So we do ask that people, unless, of course, if we're empty, we're not sort of asking people to leave, but we are asking people to, have their golf, have their tokens, and if there isn't space at the tables, they do have to leave. And that is how we currently run the business.
May I just jump in? Is that bookings for all of the areas,
no,
or just for the golf?
Yeah, we just take timed slots to the golf, and it's with those bookings that we control footfall into the venue. And as I said before, we reduced them massively, but with that, if you're not gaming, if you're not at a table, and if you're not at a machine, then by the looks of the new stipulations on the license, they wouldn't be able to drink, and quite frankly, we can't make money, so we wouldn't want them to just be hanging around if they're not gaming, and sort of treating it just as a bar. So it's those are the ways we'll do it. We have sort of 2 hour windows. If there's no space to be seated or to continue gaming, then you must leave. If you have incoming customers, you have to leave. Much like a restaurant asking a table to be turned over a period of time. And I must say, obviously, if we are quiet and there's no one there, then we wouldn't be so forceful with people as to leave, but we would require them to continue gaming, not just drinking. And I know it's hard to say because we can't predict the future, but I do sort of reiterate that our customers do come to us to game. They come to us for that specific reason, because of what we offer. There are loads of wonderful bars in the neighborhood which kind of take the lead on just that straight wet-led activity, but we really do see our customers coming to us to game.
Mr. Fleming, I'm aware, everyone, that
I'll keep this very concise. There's some contradiction between what I'm hearing and what I'm reading. So from Google reviews, a reviewer who left 50 reviews so far of different places, one of which the premises has responded to, they say, I did not actually play mini golf, as despite having made a booking, we were asked to wait and encouraged repeatedly to buy drinks, even though we had just booked to play crazy golf. After seeing the amount of people playing at the same time, the amount of people waiting in front of us, we decided to just leave. So the idea that people are being told to go to a different bar or being asked to sit in the park for a while is not evidence-based, based on this review from someone who's got over 50 reviews. They were encouraged to stay on the premises drinking. I go back to this idea that what I'm here, and or maybe the reviewer's a liar, but that could be the case. But what I'm hearing from what I'm seeing on the review is very different to what I'm hearing from the applicants.
Okay.
And I just wanted to flag that up. It's probably worth having a skim through some of the other reviews.
Please do. You'll see we have loads of great reviews from loads of local people. I mean, I think that this is a case that you believe brought up. I believe I answered the lady. I investigated the case in question. This was just after lockdown. We were very cautious about the number of people in the property. We did turn people down.
You turned it down. You carried on serving a drink.
I don't know about pushing drinks on people. It's not in our business whatsoever to do that. We, quite frankly, it's not our. We don't. I don't know where that would have come from. But I do remember at the time investigating and looking into this issue. The lady did actually leave in the end quite happy, and the review, she said she would come back and not at such a busy time.
That's not what the review says.
Well,
if you're going to have to wait, even if you made a book, you should make that clear. We will not be returning here.
Okay. Look, we normally give 15 minutes to a discussion, and I think you'll all agree that we've given this, I think maybe possibly half an hour. So I'd like to kind of move away from the discussion and on to closing remarks, if that's okay, from everyone. So, Mr. Stewart, do you want to come in with your closing remarks, please?
Thank you, Chair. I guess you've heard a lot this evening. I think there is obviously concern about if the premises if you are minded to grant, if the premises just is able to just operate as a bar, as a walk-in bar with walking customers. So maybe. Mr. Scott's made reference to bookings. Maybe that could be a condition if you're minded to grant, or customers given a window, a 2-hour window, for example, in relation to bookings. That would prevent the walk-in customers or customers just being able to walk off the street.
That would be coming in booking for anything really, gaming or golf.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that Mr. Scott could consider and come back on. It might not work for him, or it might do. Could be something worth exploring.
Mr. Scott, do you want to quickly
Sure.
come in there?
It does make it difficult. A lot of our customers do come from bookings. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we do want to have our door open to local people to come in who don't need to make a booking. I would say again that absolutely we'll make sure people are gaming at any time they're having the drink. So at no point does it descend into just being a bar. I've run bars in the past. It's not that sort of
all right.
And would you like to come back on that one?
Yeah, so booking doesn't necessarily mean advanced booking. It could be booking on the door, but that person or that group of people by 2 hours, let's say.
Is that acceptable for you, Mr. Scott, that idea?
We can make that work, absolutely. Yeah, that's something which is manageable. Yeah.
Okay, great. Mr. Chair, anything else?
No, I don't think there's anything else. But obviously, this is if you're minded to grant, because we've heard a lot of other concerns from the local residents. So
it's just good to know where we stand.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose it would be Miss Brewood, if you get any closing remarks. Louise?
Sorry, I had trouble getting the mic off there. Thank you. No, again, I just would like to point out the impact on local residents and local people, and the volume of complaints that we receive at the panel to these things, and how, if not, the problem is not giving enough conditions to any licenses to allow the police to police properly, and then when they don't, then the police are blamed. And to be fair, I've repeatedly seen in the last year that the blame from the council is quite often put onto the police, when actually they don't have the powers or within the licensing to achieve that. So I personally would ask that this is looked at very carefully, given all the comments that have been made and statements that have been given, to make sure that if the license is granted, that they are as tight as possible to be enforced, given the breaches that have happened in the summer.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fleming?
I stick by the objection on the grounds that we have an outside area which was never intended to be a drinking area. It's a light industrial unit. It has no soundproofing. It contributes to noise in the area, and the mechanisms for managing that are non-existent. It will cause noise nuisance, and it's not a fit premises for an outside seating area with drinking. So I object to the objection fundamentally.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And on to the applicant, please.
I'll do it if I may.
Please.
I'll go first, but you do the next bit. Chair, if we can just whip through a couple of points. I think Mr. Scott's covered most of them, but of course you know that planning is separate from licensing. We've got the police condition. We've reduced capacity. Well, I think we're all happy with on our side. the idea from Mr. Chewett that if Mr. Scott's happy with it, bookings in advance or on the door and a 2-hour slot, that would work and limit the drinking capacity of people, which I think would address the ladies' concerns in particular. We've got the outside area governed by framework hours and the reduced capacity. I would just remind you that neither Environmental Health or the police have objected to this application, and my clients certainly can't be responsible for what happened to London Fields or for Pub in the Park. On that basis, I would urge you, if you're minded to grant it, to look at the 2-hour slot, if that's a way around it, and to grant Mr. Scott his licence and let him move his business forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott.
I just wanted to close up saying thanks to, I know it's been a late day, thank you for listening. I appreciate that it's not it's a very unique business to the borough, which does pose relatively unique issues and differences. We are not unique. We've been around for 5 years. We want to be part of the community. I'm happy to work with all the local residents in whatever they need to make this something which the community can be proud of. And not be seen as another sort of alcohol venue. This is still a venue that kids and families can come to during the day. Unfortunately, our price point means that we just can't make a living with that, and we do need to sell those ancillary drinks to try and stay in business. The golf course shutting early and making further provisions to sound dampening inside, all things that I'm happy to do. Full soundproofing would be too costly, but anything which is within our abilities, I'm happy to try and talk to people. And as I say again, I appreciate there's a unique situation here with this. And so if Mr. Chewett would like us to put terms in to make it more appeasable for, so more what's the word for it? People can say, you're doing right, you're doing wrong, more simply without being a grey area, then that would be, of course, something we work towards them with. And in regards to Louise's issues with sound and also Mr. Fleming's issues with sound, we always do ask our customers to be respectful of the neighbours. We haven't had any complaints so far. We have been trading till 10 p.m. and our core business hours are during the day, so we don't expect lots of noise at night. And we are a small business. We're born and bred in this borough. We're just trying to find a home and stay alive through these really tough times. So any help and support from not only the council and the community to keep us there and keep the jobs going is greatly appreciated by us. It's been a devastating year. So and thank you again for your time today, everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, Councillor Patrick, I know you probably kind of want to get away, but any points of clarification you would like to make? Councillor Patrick.
No, thank you, Councillor Smith. I think I've heard everything I need to hear to make a decision. No, I think we've had a very fruitful discussion. Heard from Mr. Scott. He's made some. He's tried to fit some of the objectors into his business model. We've heard from the objectors. I've heard from Mr. Chewett, read the application. I think I've heard everything I need to hear.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, that's great. Well, look, thank you everybody for attending this subcommittee meeting. And I'm sorry it was a bit. I always like to have. Well, I like people to leave feeling that they've had a fair hearing. So I hope you feel that that's the case. So if everyone in this meeting, apart from the ones that are going to be making the decision, could sign off. Thank you for attending, and you will get a decision within 5 days, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.